for who you are. We exalt you on high for making it possible for us to see the brightness of the day. Father, we have gathered to achieve one particular goal, and we pray that you come and be with us. Come and be with our guest speaker. Come and be with each and every one of us. Give us all it takes that at the end of this workshop, we are not going to go back the same in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name we pray.
Thank you all. We want to start. But we'll be starting with the workshop presentation outline, as we already have on the slide. And from there, we will continue to move. Okay. What the next one? I think some of them are doing works. Okay, then why she knows that, let's continue. We are looking at the the outline of the workshop. And the first thing that we saw in the outline is scientific research. I don't know, do we have any person here who is not a scientist? Is there any such person here? So we are all scientists. That's good. So we want to look at scientific research. That's the first thing that we have in the study, in that outline. The slide will soon be back. So let's continue. But before we begin to look at scientific research, we will first ask ourselves questions. Everything about research is scientific. That's the first question that we need to ask ourselves. Is everything in research scientific? In other words, do we have non-scientific research? That's a question that we need to ask ourselves, and we begin from that point. And if that is the case, before we delve into scientific research, we will first ask ourselves a question: what is research? It is when we have understood what research is that we begin to talk about scientific research. If I don't know what research is, I may not be able to understand it very well when I'm talking of scientific. So the first thing that we want to look at is what research is. And that's the point where we are starting. And I think that research is an inquiry, an examination or investigation conducted for the purpose of gaining new knowledge about a phenomenon. Research is nothing but an inquiry. So one begins to make an inquiry to find out, to get new knowledge about a phenomenon. That is research. And I went further to say that it is a search for knowledge. The end product of everything that is called research is what? Knowledge. If one has said that he has conducted a research And at the end of that exercise, there is no knowledge that is gained, then I am afraid if the person actually conducted a research. So every research exercise ends up with what? Additional knowledge. So it is an original contribution. So it is research is an original contribution to an existing stock of knowledge in order to make for its advancement. And what that means is that one does not conduct research maybe from a vacuum. Research only tries to advance an already existing knowledge. Something is already in existence, but everything about that is not yet known. And as researchers try to make entries in that body of knowledge, every other aspect of that body of knowledge will be advancing as researchers are carrying out exercise on it. So that is exactly what research is. And I went further to say that it is a systematized effort to gain new knowledge. A systematized effort to gain new knowledge. And I probably went further to say that it is a process of knowledge acquisition through the use of appropriate methods. And we will understand that better. So, one thing that we have established this now is that in every research that one tries to gain new knowledge. And it is important too to say that the product of research, which is the knowledge, is not only meant for the researcher. In other words, that is where the issue of advancement of that particular body of knowledge comes in. There is an area of research that people have made contributions on. And as people are making contributions on that, various aspects of that body of knowledge is being opened to the extent that several aspects of it are being, knowledge about several aspects of it are being discovered. As a result, as a researcher, if I engage myself in a research to be able to come up with a new knowledge, this new knowledge is not first of all for me as a researcher. It is to be added to what has been known in that area of research so that the audience will be able to have a better understanding of that particular body of knowledge or that area of research. So, even as students, as you conduct research, at the end of it, there should be one thing that the exercise has contributed to that area of knowledge. If I have finished a research work and it has not contributed anything to that area of research, then I have not done anything. I hope it's clear. So having said this, we will now begin to move into what we have termed the scientific research. What I have said is research in general, but every research is not scientific. There are non-scientific research. But we will see what distinguishes a scientific research from a non-scientific research. And what is it? We say that research can be scientific or non-scientific. And I went further to say that its scientific or non-scientific nature is not determined by the phenomenon. How do I mean? We, as students, there are some areas of study that we know as non-scientific areas of study. Study areas like those in humanities, they are non-scientific. Those in pure arts, they are non-scientific. Is it not so? So they are in an area that is not scientific. For instance, someone in mass communication. Mass communication is a pure art. It is not scientific. Okay? Now, we are talking of a scientific research. What I have said is that the scientific or non-scientific nature of a research has nothing to do or is not determined by the phenomenon, which is the subject of the study, but by the process. What do I mean? We have singled out mass communication as an area of the study that is not scientific. It is a pure art area of the study. But the point we are making is that if someone is conducting a research in mass communication, it is not first of all for me to conclude because the area of that research is in mass communication that it is not scientific. I don't know if it's understood. Yes. So the scientific nature or non-scientific nature have nothing to do with the area of the study. As a result, one can conduct a scientific research even in mass communication. One can conduct a non-scientific research even in mass communication. As we are here in the Faculty of Health Sciences, it is scientific, even from its name. But I is not minding the fact that it is scientific. One can conduct a non-scientific research in health sciences. One can conduct a scientific research in health sciences. Therefore, what makes a research scientific is not the subject of study. Rather, it is the process that one takes to carry out the research. I went further to say that research is scientific when it follows an objective and a systematic method. For one to conduct, we have 2 slides. Sorry. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue, please. So I said that the research is scientific when it follows an objective and systematic method. So a research is scientific by the process of the research. And this process we are talking about is what? That there means a systematic method of arriving at a result. In other words, there is a predefined method or procedure, a step-by-step way of moving until one gets to the very point. And that once one arrives at that point, whatever is the output there, whatever is the result, becomes the finding of such a scientific research. It comprises defining and redefining problems, formulating hypotheses or suggested solutions, collecting, organizing, and evaluating data, and making inferences to reach conclusions about the subjects of the study. When one is engaged in this step-by-step procedure or approach, such a person is embarking on a scientific research. And if that is the case, one may now begin to ask, what then is non-scientific research? If a scientific research is a research, a step-by-step procedure in a systematic manner to arrive at a result, what then is a non-scientific research? We have established from the beginning that a research is any inquiry about any area of study. Any inquiry at all is research. One is interested in finding out why it is not happening the way it should happen, and continues to think all of a sudden something drops in his mind, or something drops in his mind, and he begins to test it, and he finds out that, wow, this is a wonderful solution to this I have been thinking about. That has been what? It's an inquiry. And this inquiry has resulted in a solution. But that is not scientific. I don't know if you are following. I will give one of the commonest things. You know that some persons can gain knowledge by revelation. Is it true? Is it possible that knowledge can be gained by revelation? A wonderful knowledge can be gained by revelation. And when one gets such a revelation and begins to run with it, it becomes a very wonderful thing. It is even possible to make such a one to become an international figure, that he has found out something that nobody has been able to find out all this while. But the process of getting that is not scientific. And because it's not scientific, there's no research. There's no scientific research. It is what? A non-scientific. Maybe out of someone's body, there may be a particular thing that has been bothering someone, and he has continued to think so much about it. And one day, the person wakes up and gets a revelation of the solution to that. The solution may even give such a person a Nobel Prize award, which is one of the most prestigious awards in academics all over the world. Such a discovery may be able to give such a person a Nobel Prize award. But there is no scientific means that gave rise to such. And as a result, it's not what is scientific research. I hope it's understood. So a research to be scientific, there must be a predefined step-by-step procedure that will arrive where one will continue to follow. One thing connecting to the other. One thing connecting to the other until at the end, what is the output? Whatever thing is the output becomes what? A finding of such a scientific research. I'm sure it's understood. So, as we are discussing scientific research, we have arms of scientific research. Number one important arm of a scientific research is the theoretical research. For almost all of us here, when I'm saying all of us, I mean all of us, the students, we don't engage ourselves in theoretical research. But there is an arm of scientific research that is theoretical. I will give a very simple example of what I mean by theoretical research. But before I give that, I will say that it is concerned with the movement of abstract concepts about the phenomenon and the relationships between those concepts. I will give an example. So many of us have known right from our primary school days. That is what is called mean, median, and the mode. We saw it in primary school, we came across it in secondary school, even at the university level, we are still interacting with these concepts, mean, median, mode. This is a tool that we use to arrive at the result. Is it not so? But someone actually carried out a research and came up with this tool. The tool is not as old as the human beings. It's not as old as the humans. It was born out of what? Research. Some persons continue to look at this and begin to ask, how, for instance, we are in this class, and when we don't want to use every single student in this class, how do we find a representative number of the members of this class? How can we obtain someone that will be able to represent this class, or a smaller number of persons that will be able to represent this class, to the extent that whatever information that one gets from this particular person, that becomes what? The information that one would have got if one had interviewed the entire class. And such a person continued to work until the person came up with a formula, which today we know as the formula for the mean, formula for mode, and formula for median. That is what born out of the theoretical research. Is that clear? The second arm of a scientific research is empirical research. What is empirical research? It is concerned with the theoretical concepts and relationships to see how well they reflect our observations of reality. It is based on observations. Empirical research is a scientific research that is based on observations. How do I mean? I get into the hospital, for instance, and I begin to, as I interact with patients, I will begin to observe one particular thing that is common to these patients. And I will begin to say, how can one see, or what could this thing be? Let me conduct a research about this particular thing that is common to these patients. When one is embarking on such a research, it becomes an empirical research. Why? Because it's a research that is based on what? Observations. And no. Then when we have seen these two important arms of a scientific research, we now say that every scientist who is engaged in research either carries out theoretical research or empirical research. If you remove these two, there is no other scientific research. It's either I conduct theoretical research or I conduct empirical research, or still I conduct both of them. Is that clear? So we move into steps of scientific research. Every scientific research has steps. The first step is to choose a question to investigate. In other words, to discover a gap. We will discuss gap in more detailed form as we progress. But there is no scientific research without a gap. Anytime that I am doing something and I call it a scientific research without a gap, it is like maybe carrying out an exercise without an aim. It is the gap that defines the aim. It is the gap that defines the process I need to follow. It is the gap that defines what I need to do. It is the gap that defines who will be part of this study and who will not be part of it. It is the gap that defines the length of time that this study is going to take. Everything about research, a particular research, scientific research, has to do with the words, the gap. Because the gap defines everything around such a research. And that is the very first thing to do in a scientific research. The next is to identify a hypothesis related to the question. And how do I mean? When I see a gap that I want to fill in an area of research, in an area of study, this particular gap may be filled, may be researched upon, may be handled from different perspectives. 4 persons may be working independently on one particular scientific gap, research gap, trying to solve one problem. But the direction each of these researchers are coming from may differ. And as a result, the first thing that one does so the next thing that one does after identifying a research question or a gap is to identify a hypothesis that is related to that scientific research gap. And after that, the next is to make certain predictions in the hypothesis. We begin to make predictions that this is expected to be in this direction. It is expected to be in the other direction. It is expected to be in the other direction. And these predictions are made, then one has something to begin to verify. That is why research is actually investigation. You cannot investigate something you have not predicted or projected the direction it will go. It is when we have made these predictions or projections that we now be able to do what? Begin to investigate, to see if it deviates from these predictions or if it is in line with these predictions. So number 4 is to design an appropriate experiment to answer hypothesis question. It is when I have seen a gap, I have built a hypothesis around it, I have made testable predictions that I will be able to carry out what? A design of the experiment that I need to do what? Conduct. And every time that an experiment is conducted, there is always one thing that is the product of every experiment. And what is that? Data. If I say that I have conducted an experiment,
yes, I will do that.
all right. So, one cannot say he has carried out an experiment without data. If maybe I am in a field carrying out a research, and I come back and say that I have carried out an experiment, and I have not just carried it out, but I have concluded the experiment. The next question that should come to be what? So, where is the data? Because the outcome of every experiment is data. So when I have collected data, the next thing is to determine results and assess their validity. The last is to determine if results support or refute your hypothesis. So when this is done, we will say that I have conducted a scientific research. But I want to go back to just as what we have in the slide that is before us. Research gap. It is very important that because research gap, like I said, defines every research. What is a research gap? And I said it is an unanswered research question or unresolved problem in a field which reflects lack of existing knowledge in that space. For something to be a gap in an area of research, what it means is that previous scientists have not been able to cover that particular point. Is that understood? So, in that body of knowledge, in that area of research, this question has remained what? Unanswered. No one has given answer to this particular question. If, of course, an answer has been given to that, then it is no more what? A gap. What it means, it is about something that is already in existence. But for something to be a gap means that it has not yet been revealed. It has not yet been in existence. So, there are different types of research gaps. The first is the classic literature gap. The second is disagreement gap. The third is contextual gap. And the fourth is methodological gap. So when we talk about the classic literature gap, one may be looking at a particular thing. I want to use something as an example. And that example we know. Before now, it is possible that some of us here may not, I don't know, but it is possible that some of us did not know when for you to make a call, you will need to do what? Connect a line. How do I mean? There was a time there was a body in Nigeria that goes by the name what? NITEL. What is the full meaning of NITEL? Okay. So, every single thing that has to do with telephone has to do with what? NITEL. And then there were few persons, few households that had a telephone. And then for you to make a call, sometimes those households that have telephone, they always have visitors. You know what I mean? Because everybody in the neighborhood will always come. In fact, their phone number has been shared to almost everybody everywhere. And whenever someone wants to make a call, the person will go. Or whenever someone wants to receive a call, especially those then that have people in diaspora, they will share the phone number. And they will tell the person the particular time that he will come to do what? To receive the answer a call. By that very point in time, the person will come and be waiting. And then the person in diaspora calls, and the person communicates, at the end of which, that is the end. Until when next, there is what? Another arrangement that is made for such. And someone, I'm sure, was thinking, and the person was saying, this thing that is stationed in one place, how can we make it in such a way that as you are moving with it? You cannot move with this telephone, when there is line, a cable that is connected to it. So you need to first of all detach it from what? From cable, so that you will be able to move from one room to the other, from one room to the other, and from the room to the what? Even to the parlor, to the outside. And someone was thinking about it until at the point in time that came to be. And I'm sure, even when it came to be and we began to have what we call mobile phone, someone was there researching and was saying, how can we make this mobile phone to be better? And the people continue to make it better and better and better until what we have today. Is that understood? And even today, we have this type of thing as a phone. I am sure, I am not trying to prophesy, but I'm very sure people, as researchers, have not gone to sleep. They are still researching. In the next 10 years, I am very sure that telephone will not be like this. Yes. I know now it has moved into even different gadgets, devices, like a watch. You can use your watch to make call and to answer call, and so on and so forth. We know very well that at a point in time, maybe you can now connect your phone to your computer, to the extent that even if you are not with your phone, you can make call and answer call, of course, through other apps like WhatsApp with your computer. I hope we are following. So these are various developments and advancements in the area of telecommunication. And all of those things we are seeing, they are classic gap. People are thinking, how will I make this better? And the person comes up with something. And he continues to, this kind of thing. The first time Android phone was made, I'm sure it was not like this. But people continue to try. This person makes it, it becomes like this. Another person, he pushes on it, and it will continue. And it will continue so long as until man ceases to exist in this part of eternity, it will continue to do what? It will continue to change. Is that understood? So all of these gaps, they are the things that we are seeing, and they are known as what? Classic gap, literature gap. In other words, thinking of how to make devices to become better, and then trying to improve on them. So when one is engaged in such a gap, that becomes a classic literature gap. The next is disagreement gap. The first one that I mentioned may not concern us. In fact, not may not, it does not concern us. It doesn't. But let's look at disagreement gap. This one concerns us because there may be 4 or 5 persons that have conducted researches independently, and they came up with divergent results. I don't know if any of you have seen divergent results. Have you seen such? XYZ is saying that this thing is moving to the left, right. ABC is saying no, it is moving to the what? To the left. There is what? Disagreement. I hope it's understood. And for the fact that there is disagreement has raised what? Has raised a research problem. Because people want to use it. I want to use maybe in the area of drug discovery. Somebody may say that they have found a particular drug that can be used, and they have this particular percent of efficiency. Another person says that he has another drug that has a better efficiency than that one. And there is a disagreement that this one is better than the other one. Others are saying that that one is better than this one. There is need at this point to do what? To harmonize these divergence results. And how do we harmonize it? We cannot harmonize it by voting. You understand? It is not because XYZ has said that this drug maybe comes in this way, and the ABC says it comes in a different way. It is not for us to gather all the experts in that area and ask them to vote. Is that how to solve the problem? You cannot solve it by voting. What do you need to do? You need to go to the lab. To do what? To conduct research. To be able to do what? Show exactly how it moves. In this situation, there are certain things that are possible. Number one, it is possible that drug A performs better in certain conditions. Drug B performs better in certain other conditions. But these conditions, we need to do what? Find out. And that is what? Through the process of scientific research. So that someone will now come up to say, between these two drugs, that the drug A is actually better. But for it to be better, these conditions have to be satisfied. I hope it's understood. While drug B is equally better, but for it to be better, these other conditions have to be satisfied. In such a situation, two of them are good. It now depends on the what? The conditions of the patients that are taking the drugs. If you belong to this condition, take drug A. If you belong to this other condition, take drug B. I hope it's understood. In such a situation, we have tried to solve the problem that exists in that literature. Because by coming up with divergent results, it doesn't make for a well-settled and well-established literature. There is need to come up with a way of bringing these two together so that one will be able to see the strengths of one and the weakness of the other. I hope it's understood. So in such a situation, that is a disagreement gap. When there are disagreements in a body of knowledge, and you need to do what? Get into such a research to be able to do what? To be able to solve such a disagreement is a disagreement gap. The next is contextual gap. Yes, in this area of research too, contextual gap is always inherent. And how do I mean? When we are talking of a finding, a research finding that is based on context, I want to use one context at this point, racial context, for instance. There may be a particular sickness that is more inherent to a particular race than the other race. Is it true? And in such a situation, it is not for one to now say that this sickness does not exist. No, it exists, but there is a contextual gap. Someone has carried out this particular study, maybe amongst the people of Australia that are suffering from that particular sickness. And they came up with a finding, and that finding is peculiar to Australian race. I hope it's understood. Someone may decide to conduct the same research using Africans as the case study. In such a situation, it is a contextual gap that the person is trying to fill. And that is why someone will carry out a particular research using maybe people from the Southeast Nigeria. Another person repeats that same research using people from North Central Nigeria. I hope it's understood. What the person is actually trying to do is to bridge a contextual gap. I hope it's understood. So when one is looking for such a gap, it is a contextual gap. The last is methodological gap. Methods of solving problems. Mr. A has said that for me to solve this problem, I will use this method. Mr. B comes and he is conducting his research and says, no, instead of this particular method, I have found another better method that we can use to solve the same thing, the same problem. And when one is doing that, it becomes what? A methodological gap. Do you understand that? For instance, I want to continue to use that example I used before. Mean, median, mode. We know what mean is. We know what median is. But in the essence of it, two of them are solving the same problem. Two of them give the same results. How do I mean by the same results? What I mean is that what mean does to a set of data is what median does to a set of data. That is why at the elementary level, in our studies, we call the measures of central tendency. What do? Two of them are two different methods that are used to locate what? The center of a set of data. Mean locates the center of a set of data. Median locates the center of a set of data. But when we have a set of data and we compute the mean of that set of data, we compute the median of that set of data, we may not get the same result. Is it true? Yes. They may differ. At some other points, they may be the same. But whether they differ or they don't differ, that is does not matter at this point. What is important is that two of them tries to locate the center of that set of data. So the extent that one will be able to say, I have picked a particular value I can use to do what? To represent the whole set of data. And that is what two of them are doing. Is that understood? So someone came up with what we know as the mean. Another person says, no, that this particular mean, it is good. There's no problem with it. But we can find another word, method that can be used. And the one thing that is important is that whenever one is engaged in methodological gap, you will first of all try to criticize the existing method. Do you understand? Because if you have not criticized the existing method, one will be asking you a question. So this thing that you have done, what is its relevance? How is it relevant? Its relevance will lie on what? On criticisms you have leveled against the existing method. I hope it's understood. So with that, you will now be able to say, because for me to find the need, for us maybe that discuss the statistics, there are advantages and disadvantages of each of them. For instance, the mean of a set of data is affected by what we know in statistics as an outlier, which in some other fields they call it an anomaly. Okay? The mean is affected by it because once if you have maybe a set of 50 observations and you decide to do what? Pick one of them and replace it with an outrageous maybe number. The mean shifts. And when one is reporting the mean, it will seem to be the what? Mean of that particular group of 50 observations. But by introduction of that outlier, you have shifted the mean from what it is supposed to be. Is that clear? But if it is median is not affected by the presence of an outlier. So as a result, somebody will say that in experimental research, for you to, as you are conducting an experiment, even when you are recording the findings of an experiment, that you may make mistake. Maybe a result that is supposed to be 20, you may just put 200, and that makes it to be what? 200. With such a mistake, when you compute the mean, that mistake is going to affect the mean. Is that clear? And because of that, this person now says, to avoid, because we know that the mistakes are inherent with human nature. So, for us to be using mean all the time, that is going to affect the results or research. And of course, especially in health sciences, where we deal with human lives, a single mistake, no matter how small it may be, may affect what? May affect human lives. Is it true? And because it is true, Someone will now say, no, that instead of this, let us do what? Let us try to take another measure of central tendency that will not be affected by this mistake. Because we are human beings, we are not machines. That mistake is inherent. And as a result, can we find out another measure of central tendency that is not affected by this kind of mistake? And with that, we can care. And the person will do what? Will present it to the world. I have found another method of finding the what? The central point of a set of data that is not affected by what? By extreme values. And in such a situation, that would be very much welcome. I hope it's understood. That's case because the person has first of all criticized the mean. Now this mean is good, but it's not always good because there is this particular problem that may affect it. Let me come up with another one that will not be affected by that problem. And when the person comes up with it, it becomes a celebrated finding. I hope it's understood. So these are various gaps that we see as we go into research. Next. Okay, research gap continues. So I said there, identify the mostly by careful and systematic reviews within the research literature. How do I mean? The question that first bullet point is trying to answer is, how do we find the research gap? Did you hear my question? How do I find the research gap in my area of research? We understand that somebody may be sleeping and the God may reveal a particular problem to the person, and he wakes up after that such a dream and he writes it down. And when he begins to check, he can make a very wonderful research. Is such a thing possible? Is it possible? Yes. No, it is possible. We are not ruling out that fact. But as it concerns us in scientific research, there is only one method of finding a research gap. And that method is through an extensive literature review. That is the only potent method of finding a gap. I hope it's understood. Do you know why such a thing, why it is important? I will share an experience I had in the past. So many years ago, I saw something that looked very attractive to me in my area of research. And already as I was seeing that, a question was really jumping out in my up in my heart. And what was the question? How can I do this to connect it to this other one and it becomes something that we do? And as that question was coming, I was jumping into it. It took me some months to do that research. And every day I wake up and I was in that research, I was happy. You know, when you are doing a research that you have interest in, if a day comes and you don't visit it, you will ordinarily feel sad. And someone beside you will notice that you are not feeling okay. I don't know how it happens, but I'm saying something that I know out of what? Experience. If you have ever put your hands on research, especially a research that you have interest in, every day you will want to do what? You will want to be doing the research. To the extent that if anything comes up that will prevent you from engaging yourself with that, you will feel sad ordinarily. So I was very happy. I was doing the research and I was getting results as I had already seen in my heart. Result was coming, and it continued to come until I think I was almost 95% in that result research. I was 95% true. What was remaining was for me to get the very last thing that I needed to get. And I was only thinking of where I was going to publish it because it was very promising, it was looking fine. But something happened one day. I picked up, I can't remember now whether it was my computer or whether it was a textbook. I can't remember. But I picked either of the two. I picked it up and I was going through that. And I saw that that had been published exactly the way I did it. Just exactly the way I did it. And I was like saying in my heart, who was this person that saw what I was seeing and went ahead to complete it before myself? That day, I was sad, and I closed that research. And until today, I never opened it again. And but then, as I was angry with everything, including the person that did that one and published it, I was angry with the researcher that did that. But in the midst of all of those things, one day I began to tell myself the real truth. You know that real truth? I was the cause of the problem. How did I cause the problem? If I have done literature review, definitely I should have seen that. I didn't do literature review. I thought that I was the only person thinking. And is it possible that I was the only person thinking? In fact, I was thinking late because this person that published it thought before myself and had finished it before you. So what is implied is what? That extensive research is very important. If you want to do a research that is going to last the test of time, that is going to be something that is worthy, that can be regarded as a good research output, it cannot be done without an extensive literature review. And what do we do in extensive literature review? We are trying to see all the people that have done something related to that. And as we continue to look at them, we will be moving until at the point we will see that though they have done all of these things in this area, but especially recently, all the people that were researching in this area, they were only moving in the right direction. And something is only coming up in my heart. What if I move it to the left? What will happen? And the moment I'm thinking in that way, I have established what? A gap. I hope it's understood. Now, I said again that reviews are carried out chronologically from the earliest available findings to the latest. If I want to do extensive literature review, I must not be haphazard. If I am haphazard, I will not achieve anything. Extensive literature review is done chronologically. And how do I mean? The earliest possible research in that area I can lay my hands on. I will continue from that point to read and define until I come to the latest. Until even today, if there is anything that is done in that area, today, when I come up to this point, up till today, there's one thing that literature review does. As you are reviewing literature from the earliest, the first time you review the earliest work, you may have up to 20 different questions in your heart on what could be done. Do you understand? Then you review the second generation in that area of research. You may find out that out of these 20 questions that are in your heart, that 18 has been handled already. Is that clear? Then you come to the third generation research in that area. You will find out that all of them have been handled. Okay? And the third generation. Then you come to the fourth, even in that same third generation, they have all been handled. But maybe out of 20 works that you have seen in that area that have handled all of them, you may pick an interest only in one question. You will find out that 20 works have cited that particular work. So they have done something in addition to only one out of these 20 questions. And you will find out that out of these 20 works, maybe 19 are moving in one direction. One is moving in the other direction. You may still decide to take that one that is moving in the other direction. You will find out that though it is moving in that direction, but it got to a point, instead of continuous move to the left, it started moving upwards. You continue to follow it. There are works that cited that one that is now moving upwards. You are still following it. It is moving upwards, and it got to a point, it now did what? Instead of maybe flying to the left, to the right, or even down, it didn't work. It started multiplying, creating branches. As it is moving up, it now created about 5 branches. What do you need to do? You may read one branch and see how it is moving. You may not have interest in it. You read the second branch and see how it's moving. You may not find interest in it. As you continue to read, out of 5 branches, you may pick interest in two of the branches. Then you begin to follow them. You follow this branch, and then you see where it ended. You follow the other branch. As you continue to move, it is possible that as you are moving until you get to the point where that particular branch is in the research as of now. I hope it's clear. And the question will be coming to your heart. Since this particular branch has got to this point and this is the direction it's moving, can I take it to another level? A question will come to your heart. Part of the question that will come to your heart may be, for these other 3 branches that you are not interested in, even though you have great works in those areas, but you may see one that is using a particular method out of those 3 that you don't like. You understand? There's this particular branch that you are following, which you have interest in. You have followed it up to now, where it is now. You remember that when you were reading one of those other branches, you saw a method that was used there, which can apply in this one at this point. Can I go to that branch, follow that method, and then use it to do this particular one? At this point it is. If it is possible, then it becomes what? A gap. I hope it's clear. So at that point, you will now conclude that you have a research question to answer. You have a topic. You have a research to do. I hope it's understood. So, it is not for me to begin to do research or literature review haphazardly. If I follow it that way, I may not be able to do an enduring and a good research. The next question that may be coming up in somebody's heart is, how will I be able to follow an area of research from the earliest to the present? We thank God today. So many years ago, if you want to do research, you go to the library. Okay? And then when you get there, sometimes they will ask you, maybe your supervisor will tell you, go to the library, go to the journal section. You will see journals in this area and begin to look at them. And those years we will carry our notes and we go to the library and we will pick those journals that they published in 1971, 1972, 1973, and most of the time the phone is always like this, and we are going through this. You may not be able to do much. Sometimes they can as well be boring. They can be so tiring. You will do it for 2 hours. It appears that if you are wasting your time, nothing is actually clicking. There's nothing. If anybody asks you, what are you actually doing? Sometimes you may not even be able to tell the person what you are doing. I hope it's understood. And for one to be able to go through such works, to come up with something that is important, if God does not help such a person, the person may even lose interest in the research. And that is why sometimes you see someone, you say, after all, my life doesn't depend on this beauty. I have other better things to do with my life. I go to, maybe this man or this woman, he will not understand me, she will not understand me. I will go to him or her to report that I'm not seeing anything. And after saying everything that I will say, instead of pitying me, he or she will still tell me, you have not done enough. Go back to the library. And someone will go with such a frustration, the person will say, I have other things to do with my life. That my life doesn't depend on this degree. Let me move on with my life. And then that is how sometimes the person will abandon the program. And if the person happens to have a supervisor that will be caring, it will get to a point, the supervisor will start calling the student. I have not seen you for some time. What's the problem? He says that. In fact, there are so many things. Don't worry. When I come, we will talk about it. And the supervisor will be begging the students, come and finish this program now. And after much begging, the person will think, since he is begging me, maybe when I go, the situation will change. And when you go and they start explaining everything, say that, okay, no problem, you know what we are going to do. Let me myself, I will follow you to the library. I will show you about 2 journals that we need to read. What do you think we are doing? We are going back to the same thing that got you tired. But the supervisor will be telling you that, look at this. In fact, some of them will just turn and go to their shelf and bring out one of the same thing that you are running away from. And say, look at this. There is this paper that this person published. You just like, go and look at it. It is the same thing that got you tired that they are pushing you into. And after much persuasions, if God doesn't help the person, that person will run away. Especially if he feels that he is not losing anything or not losing much. The person may say that I'm losing. That's what I'm going to lose may not be so much. In fact, my life doesn't depend on this. Instead of this, if it must be masters, maybe let me go to another place. In fact, I can do MBA so that I will have masters. I can do this other program so that I will have this degree. But for me to continue with this one, no. Especially if it's PhD, no, now. My life doesn't depend on this. Let me move on. So, it can be tiring. But things have become so much easier these days. The only problem is that as the things are becoming easier and easier, researchers are becoming lazier and lazier. That is the only problem. I don't know if you agree with me. It's a simple truth. When some persons were in school, when I was an undergraduate, I didn't have any food. There was no food. And then, even if there were phones there was no Android phone. appraisal at that time. The only type of phone that was a mobile phone that was around then was Nokia. We don't know about 310. Is it a 310 or that's 310? We know that type of Nokia. That was the type of phone that was available. And I want to ask you, is there any research you can do with such a phone? There's no research. But today, we have technology has so advanced that in the advancement of this technology, it has introduced laziness. That is why a student will, you will give the student assignments and you will carry the same question and put in ChatGPT. And ChatGPT will release all the possible answers in the world about that particular question. And the student will copy all of them. And the president, and ChatGPT will simply ask you, if you like, so one simple question. ChatGPT has given you 4-page answers. And after giving you 4-page answers, it now tells you, if you like, I can still develop it to get this one and to get the other one. You know, ChatGPT is never tired. It is very difficult for you. Even when you tell ChatGPT, thank you, you will say you are welcome. I hope this has helped you. Otherwise, I can still do this. So, when you give a student an assignment to go and solve, instead of for the student to go and try his brain to solve the assignment, you put the question, the way it is, to ChatGPT and it should produce an answer. And because of the laziness, you know, the answer did not come from the head, it didn't come from the brain. And since the answer did not come from the brain, the student is not even interested in that answer. What is his interest? You know the way the students these days. When I used to tell my students sometimes I get angry with students. Sometimes I walk some of them out of my office. When you come and say, sorry, sir, I'm looking for this man. Who is the person? That's Star man. I don't know if you can say the same type of thing. Everybody experience the same type of thing. I'm looking for Star 311 man. I say, who is Star 311 man? I say, that man is fake. If that man is fake, is it someone's name? No. Sometimes I will tell the students that in my university days, that I graduated more than 20 years ago, but ask me any lecturer that taught me any course that today, even if you wake me up from sleep and ask me who taught you this course, I will tell you. Whether departmental course or even GS courses, I still know the names of my lecturers that taught me. But even your own departmental lecturer, you don't know his name. You will say it is what? Star 311 man. If it's a woman, you say Star 311 woman. What has become of the person's name? So that is the level of what? Laziness. Nothing is in the head. After all, if you ask the person, sometimes I will walk the person out, go and find out the name. When you have found out the name, come back. Some will not come back. Some will come back and say, yes, I have found the name. And the name is so and so. I will say, okay, I will attend to the person. But oftentimes, if I have the time, I will not fail to tell the person. And it is not correct. If you don't know your lecturer's name, the day, by the grace of God, you will graduate. And how will you remember them? Maybe you will remember that man, hey, that was this man that taught you one course. Such a person will not remember the course he did when he graduates. Why? Because it is AI that is doing everything. So, Technology has brought about laziness. But technology is actually meant to help us. Technology is meant to complement our human brain. Just the way we use a calculator to do addition and subtraction. Those things we are doing with calculator, we have first of all known them. That there is what calculator is doing for me is multiply. Is it not so? And I know the meaning of multiplication. But it's just that the number that I need to multiply, I cannot easily get it from my head. So I need something to aid me. But after knowing that, I have known it. And that is why when you are pressing calculator to get maybe product of two numbers, there's the kind of number it will give to you, you will doubt it. Is it true? You will say that this cannot be true. When you will now begin to check, you will find out that instead of pressing 20, that you press the 2. When you wanted to press the 0 button, but the 0 button was stiff and did not respond. And therefore, it ended at what? 2. And you used it to get the answer. But because you have seen the answer, and because you know exactly what you are doing, you without it, you throw it. But if you didn't know what the calculator is doing, anything it gives to you, you do what? You copy it down. So, AI is meant to help us. It's meant to complement the human brain. It's not meant to make us lazy. So, all of these things, what am I trying to say? That research has become a little bit easier these days. That I can stay in the comfort of my room and generate all the journal articles I need to find in an area of research I want to do. Is that clear? Without having to go to anywhere, without having to leave my room. I can just be in my room, have all the possible journal articles I need to find. But when I have finished packing them, these days now, that's why I said that with the invention of AI, and too, that this AI we are seeing, the level that we are today is not how we started. It has continued to improve and continue to improve. To the extent now that I may carry a journal paper and put in AI and tell AI to summarize this journal paper article and tell me what the journal article is talking about, and AI will tell me. In a space of seconds, it will do. You see it will do in a space of 1 second, maybe some seconds. It will give me. But this paper concentrates on this, includes on the work done by so and so. And it has 3 aspects. It moves in this direction, it moves in the other one, it moves in the other one. It is not wrong for me to do that. What is wrong is for me to copy it as it has produced. You understand? And begin to move with it. That is what is wrong. The reason is because if I copy that thing and continue to move, none of those things will be in the brain. I will just, even these days, to write a journal article, people can stay in their room and finish journal article. You go to AI, you can even tell AI to generate a set of data. Which, yes, AI mimics. It can mimic. Maybe you want to collect data on maybe pregnant women. There's a particular information you want to generate from pregnant women. You can ask AI to give me data on this, mimic this data. AI can mimic it and give you data. Okay? And when it gives it to you, wonderful. Part of your research is what you are now looking for is what? How do I analyze it? The same AI will even tell you that if you still want to analyze it, why not? Who wants to suffer? Please go ahead and analyze. You analyze it and give you a result. After giving you a result, he will tell you, if you want me to interpret it, I can still help you to interpret the result. Go ahead. AI interprets, discusses it, and gives you everything, and it looks what? Very beautiful. But nothing is in the head. If you wake up tomorrow morning and somebody asks you one question on that, you need to be able to answer any question. If we don't know how to manage it. But all the same, the point I'm trying to make is that the research has got better now. And because it has got better, easier and simpler, we should be able to engage in research and be able to find some things that are missing. So, how do I do this extensive literature review? If I find the oldest or one of the earliest works in that area of research, there are journal articles that cited that work. You understand? Go to the site numerated by 72 journal articles. Okay? If you open them, they cited works. It is not all these 72 journal articles that cited that work meant to do what? To improve that work. Some cited it in passing. I don't know if you understand what I mean. You may cite something in passing. Maybe because someone made a statement, okay, and you want to quote that statement, only one single statement, you are citing the work. Is it not so? Once you say that ABC 2020 did this, it does not mean that you are improving what you did, but it's just because you saw that work and there is a statement in there which you want to leverage on to be able to move on with your research. So out of these 72 works that cited that, it is possible that 50 of them cited it in passing. I hope it's understood. Yeah. There's only 22 actually try to further what they did. So try to get those 22 that try to further what they did and you read them. As we are reading them, each of them has works that cited them. As we are reading them, you will pick interest maybe in 2 or 3 out of those 22. You pick interest in 3. When you pick interest in 3, read them in details. Find out exactly what they did, how they improved the earlier one. Now, you will see works that cited those 3. Look for those works that cited those 3. And then see the works that improved on those 3. If you continue in that way, you are coming, maybe the earliest work was done in 1952. The next generation of that research was carried out maybe in 1970. And it continues to move. You are moving, you are coming closer and closer until you see the last generation of that work that was done maybe in 2025. I hope it's there. So with that, you have traversed all the nooks and corners of that research area, and you can discuss that research area without any paper, without anything. To the extent that maybe your supervisor has called for you to come, let us discuss. You can sit there and discuss for hours on that area because you have known everything, almost everything that you need to do that will help you in what you are doing. So when you have done that, as you are doing all of those things, questions are coming up in your head. Okay? As they come, you put it down. As they come, you put it down. By the time you have got to the last generation, which is in 2025, then you will now begin to move. Out of these questions, this particular one has not been answered, and I have interest in this. That becomes a gap that you want to fill. To the extent that as you are discussing it with your supervisor, on getting to this point that you want to move, no supervisor will say no. to this kind of thing because he or she would have seen that you know what you are doing and you have interest in what you want to do. I hope it's clear. But it's not. Last 2 years, I saw someone called me and then told me, introduce himself. It was someone in my department when I was in undergraduate, a year ahead of me. He introduced himself and I remembered him. After sharing pleasantries, he said there's something he's doing, that he's doing his PhD. He was formerly in the banking industry, and after some time, it appeared that things were changing in the banking industry, and he was laid off. He had no other thing to do. He came back to academics, did his master's. Now he's doing his PhD, and his supervisor had told him to go into this area of research, but that he doesn't know how to go about this. That he is looking for me, and then someone told him that I'm in that area of research, and he called me, not from the same university, but somewhere else. He called me and said, okay, no problem. He said, what do you want me to do for you? That he wants me to help him to get a topic in that area of research. I told him, no, I won't be able to help you to get a topic. Do you know what? If I should help him and get a topic, everything that happens in that topic will become me. And I'll be the one that will be doing the research. I may not be doing the research, but I'll be the supervisor. I'll be the one supervising the research. I'll be telling him, go and do this. And when he goes to do that, what he finishes it, he will not know what to do with it. They will still report to me. I have finished it, and this is where I am. This is the point where I am. What should I do next? And I won't be able to do that. I told him what to do. I told him to go and do teaching review. That I can help you, but this is what you need to do, so that you yourself will have knowledge of that area. And after that, he said thank you, that he'll get back to me. Until today, he has not got back to me. Maybe I didn't tell him what he wanted to hear. He wanted to hear something that is very fast, and I was taking him back to that age, which he was not ready for. But that is the way to do. If you want to do an endurance research, you must know the background. Any person who doesn't know the basic will not be able to do something that will last in the future. So you need to know what had happened before. Then where are we today in this area, so that you now be able to know what should I begin to do for the future. So intentions of research review include what has not been considered in the literature, areas of disagreements in the findings of other researchers, context upon which findings have been made, and procedures applied to reach desired results. This thread has captured these four have captured what? The four types of what? Research gap. The classic, the contextual, the disagreement, and the reward methodology. So next, we are looking at methods of research, scientific research, versus methodology of scientific research. Methods versus methodology. I know one of the sections of our research work is research work methodology. Is it true? What is methodology? Maybe I will ask us, what do we understand by research methodology? Okay, maybe while we are thinking of that question, because we are going to answer, while we are thinking of that, all that we have said so far before now, does anybody have any question on any of them? Okay, I want to give numbers. So, sometimes there are questions that will be a follow-up. I want to raise questions from what we have discussed. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, 5, and that's all. Number 1, ask your question.
My question is on the gap, discovering the gap. Like if you are carrying out a research, maybe the research that is conducted, because from what we see, a research is a continuation of what has been done. If you are carrying out a research conducted maybe somewhere in the continent, right? The research has been carried out somewhere in the continent, or even in the country, but the group differs. You are usually depend. You can say that that's the gap. Maybe the research was conducted among. Maybe a research was conducted among people. Let me use nurses for example. Nurses in primary healthcare center, and now you are using that topic to assess that particular behavior or thing, and not nurses in tertiary institution. Would you say that you discover a gap?
I have noted the question. Thank you for the question. And when we are talking of gaps, it is part of what I have said already, that if it is about nurses' behavior, are you following? If it is about nurses' behavior, we know naturally that the human being's behavior to a large extent is influenced by his or her environment. Okay? If we are coming from that perspective, then one will now be able to say that since we are looking at nurses' behavior in primary health care, and we have other sets of nurses, maybe in a tertiary health center, if that is the case, because of the fact that there is difference in the environment, one will now be saying that probably there may be a difference in their behavior. And as a result, that I want to check as well to see how those universities in the other environment, how they behave. Is that clear? So in such a situation, that falls under the type of gaps that I have mentioned, which I call contextual gap. Is that clear? So it is a gap. It is a contextual gap. But at the same time, it's important for you to note that for you to be able to see it as a gap, you need to justify that it is a gap by first of all noting that professionals' behavior depends on the environment of their work. And as a result, as we have nurses in a different environment, probably their behavior may be affected or influenced by that other environment. So you want to find out how do they behave in this particular situation, and that is a contextual gap. Number two.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, my fellow students. My question might also be related to hers, but I don't know if it's the same, so I want to get a clarification. I'm talking in the area of study area. If it differs for the same methodology and systematic process, can you say there is a gap, sir?
Sorry.
Study area. Let's say you carry out a research at University of Manhattan Hospital, but then you want to carry out at place.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I want to, let's place the questions that are coming, they are coming for all of us. And the answers are equally for all of us. So don't first of all say that this question doesn't concern you. It may concern you. So it's important that we listen to every question and at the same time we listen to the answers. Now, to answer that question that she just asked, one will be there is what is called a heterogeneity of study populations. How do I mean? If I will break it down a bit, there is something that we know as differences in study population. Okay? Now, someone that has conducted a research at the University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital, and then another person taking that particular research to maybe ASU Teaching Hospital, one will be asking a question: is there any difference in the population? Because it is not first of all for me to say, yes, I have a research gap. I should be able to justify the gap to be a gap. Is there any difference? Is it the same study population? That is the question. And even though research has not been well defined, for me to be able to look at it as defined, but if I should look at it maybe from a distance as they have presented it, I will not first of all be thinking that there is a difference. The difference is as it concerns the institution. That is the difference, which in a research may not be a gap. Why? Because if that becomes a gap, then there will be more than 100 works on a particular topic. First of all, I should be able to ask myself a question. The difference in her own was that she talked about two different classes of what? Healthcare. Is that clear? And because of that, one will be able to see clearly that there is what? A difference between what? These classes of healthcare. But in this case of your question, there is no difference in the institution. The only difference is what? In name. You understand? And since there is no difference, for instance, the same person that is qualified to work in ASU Teaching Hospital is qualified to render exactly the same service as the University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital. So the question will not be, what is the difference? There is no difference. Is that understood? There would have been a difference if the qualifying degrees for someone to be in the other place and someone to be in the other place, if there is a difference in the qualifying degrees. Is that clear? Number one, or if the patient is admitted in this other place and the other place, if there is a demarcation, a clear-cut demarcation between them, then one will be able to see there's actually what? A difference. So, institutions alone does not make a concept. I don't know if it's understood. There must be a clearly defined difference between the institutions before one will be able to say that there is what? A difference of context. I hope I've answered your question. Number 3. Okay, number 3 has brought down the hand. Number 4. Yeah, number 4. How come? They want to confuse me. Okay, one person should now be on number 3. Let us assume we are now on number 3.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you said we should write our literature review starting from the past
Yes.
present.
Yes.
So I want you to please help clarify because some other supervisors say we should start from areas away from us, that's abroad, and then bring it down. Like if I'm writing a study, I will be citing the top, I can cite US, UK, I come to Africa, I cite Ethiopia, then I come to Lagos, and then I come to England. But what of the dates? If the dates are muffled up, how do I reconcile both?
Okay. You are actually carrying out a contextual research. Did you get what I said? Huh? You are actually carrying out a contextual research by the explanation that you gave. You are trying to look at how something happens probably in Enugu State. All right? And for you to begin to say that this is how this thing happens in Enugu State, you need to know how it first of all happens in other places. You understand? So, because of that, you begin to look at all the works in that particular topic that have been done in other areas. So, as you are looking at it, you are coming closer and closer to yourself. Do you get what I'm saying? Maybe, like from what you say, we should cite US, cite not non-Africans first. When you have finished, you now come to Africa. Even when you come to Africa, go to North Africa, go to Southern Africa, come to the eastern part of Africa, go to the central part of Africa. Now, when you have done that, you now come to the West Africa. Even when you have come to West Africa, begin now to look at other countries of West Africa. Is that clear? When you have looked at other countries of West Africa, with all of those states, we have now seen a kind of trend. You understand? Differences on that you have seen, and it continues to narrow down until you now come to, when you have finished studying West Africa, you come to Nigeria. Probably the same work has been done in northwestern Nigeria. For instance, you check what has been done in northwestern Nigeria. Compare it, first of all, with other parts of West Africa. Maybe another type of work that was done in Ghana are really the same, and so on and so forth. When there is a difference in the findings, what is now implies is that it is possible that there will equally be difference when you are considering maybe Southeast Nigeria. You understand that? So with that, we are trying to establish that there is actually what? Differences in behavior as you are moving from place to place. So it is correct because it is a contextual research. I hope it's clear. This research is not based, first of all, on the earliest research. It is not based on chronology. It is the same thing you are trying to find out, but you are trying to find out as it relates or as it concerns a particular set of people. Do you understand? So that is the purpose of this research, is to see how it concerns a particular region. So in such a situation, you have no business with how it happened in the past. Do you understand? You have no business with how it happened in the past. Your business is how it has happened to all the other surroundings before you will now be able to see. Now I have seen how it has happened in other surroundings. What about here? How will it happen here? And that now becomes, you have now pinned it down to the area you are studying. You will now need to. There are some contextual research like this that will be both chronological and maybe contextual. In such a situation, you will establish what? The chronology and the context. Even when you are looking at how it has happened in the US, you will check how it happened before in the US, maybe in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s, in the 2010 and then up to 2020 something. You understand? You do the same to all those other regions before you will now come to where you are studying, maybe Southeast. In the Southeast, is there any indication that this has been studied before? How did it happen before? You understand? So if you follow how it happened before until now how is it happening now? And that becomes your research. I don't know if I've answered you. Number 4 now.
Okay, thank you, sir. So my question is, we talk about 2 arms of scientific research, one theoretical research and the other empirical research. So I want to know why in academic environment like this, empirical research is more commonly used than theoretical research. And I also want to know the situation where we can use theoretical research methods to carry out our research. Thank you.
Okay. I hope we are still together. We are looking at, she started with a question, which, when she asked that question, I concluded that this is the fallacy. Yes, she said, why is it that in academic research that we have more of empirical research than theoretical research? And I called it a fallacy. Why? Because it is not true. You are making overgeneralization. Okay? Why did I say it's overgeneralization? You know, research depends on areas. Yes, I understand in your own field, you do more of what? Empirical research. But in my own field, we don't do anything, any good MSc, PhD work is not empirical. If you look at all the MSc works, for instance, that are done in my department in 1 year, you may not see empirical research. Majority of them will be theoretical. You understand? So, if someone that is coming from my own side hears this thing that we have said, the person will be wondering, where is this person coming from? So, it depends on somebody's area of research. You do more of empirical research because you deal with human beings. Is it true? Because you deal with human beings, you will need to test human beings to find out results so that you will not be able to do what? You will be able to conduct your research. Is it true? That is why it is more of empirical research. When you go to other things of study that are theoretical, abstracts, they may not understand what you talk about when you are talking of empirical research. I don't know if I've answered your question. So, you do more of empirical research because of the area of research you conduct. In the area of research you do, what do I call it? The participants you use are what? Human beings, is it true? And I said before that research is research that is based on what? Observations. You need to observe human beings, find out something about them, and then report it. Then begin to look at it, analyze that which you have found out from there. And by the time you finish the analysis and you report the analysis, it becomes what? A complete research. So, their area of the study has ways that you do empirical research. Another person's area of the study may mean that the person will be doing theoretical research. I've answered your question. And finally, number 5.
Your last explanation, trying to lines in my own concept. My question is similar to the other because it's similar to the first question that you answered. In now your research you say you enthusiastically went into, then at some point 95% completed, found that someone has completed it. And you abandoned it. I was worried because I was thinking of context, geographical context, cultural context, and other contexts. So I felt that, like the earlier questions was trying to emphasize, that when there is geographical differences, that's context-wise now, one can simply, based on the context, and go ahead to run this. Now, your last answer to the last question tried to bring some clarity, and I want to verify that. Was that your study theoretical or was it empirical? Because it has a lot of this. If it was theoretical, which is more of the whole field, we feel more of empirical. And I felt that if it's empirical, considering context, we can proceed with that study. If it's theoretical, does it automatically stop one for kind of believing that it has been done? So no point doing it. Context, not the context.
Thank you. I got your question. He expressed a kind of concern, but even when he was expressing it, he has answered the question. Because I will give a simple example. 1 plus 1 is what? Huh? No, 1 plus 1 is 2. We are not in a workshop hall. We are not in a winning hall. So we are discussing workshop, not wedding. So 1 plus 1 going to be what? 1 plus 1 in America is what? 1 plus 1 in Nigeria is what? What if we take it to Afghanistan? Anywhere we take it to. We have had that people visit other planets. Even if we take it to those planets where people have visited, 1 plus 1 is what? Do you understand that? So in such a situation, it is not based on context. It is theoretical. I hope you don't. Has that clear your questions or your worries? And once a work is theoretical, it remains sincere everywhere. It is only when it is empirical that, because I say that empirical research is based on observations. The set of people that you have observed in Nigeria may not be the same set of people you will observe when you get to Israel. Is it true? Therefore, when you have conducted a research for this population of Nigeria, when you get to Israel, somebody will say, but because that these people are not the same with those you have used in Nigeria, there is need to do what? To carry out this same research in Israel. And the probably you get a different result. I hope it's clear. But when it is a theoretical research, it's the same everywhere. So thank you. We have finished this session of the question and answers. Let's go back to what we are discussing. But that will not make us to forget that there was a question that we will not answer. And the question is, what is methodology? Next slide. I asked this question. Yes, please. The help us.
Study of methods.
Okay, study of methods. Yes. Thank you, sir. step-by-step approach of writing a research. Thank you too. The last person. A systematic way of a systematic way of carrying out the research. Thank you too. All the people, we have, I said and the three, which means and means the last. So at every point that are needed to be brought out, I think they have brought out the points. Systematic way, step-by-step way, study of methods. These are the things that we are saying, and all of them are correct. So methodology and the methods are not the same. If we take it from the first person, he said that methodology is the study of what? Methods. Which means study of methods means that it is different from methods. Is it not so? All right. You know, in this university, we have a lot of logic. Is it true? Yes. I don't know if do we have anyone here there? What are they? Yes, I remember one. I remember sociology, physiology, dermatology, pathology, histopathology. So what is now? We have mentioned there are still many of them. Is it true? Let us use the only one. What is pathology? Study of study of disease processes or study of disease. Study of disease processes. Okay. What I have picked from all of them is that we are studying disease. Is it not so? That is pathology. Let's leave the technicalities of pathology because we are discussing to the layman. I am a layman. Okay? So I have seen it to be study of diseases. Now, is pathology the same thing as diseases? It is only what? Study of diseases. Is it not so? Study of it. It is in that same way that methodology is a study of what? Methods. Is that clear? So methodology is the study of methods. And at the same, because it is a study of methods, it equally means that in methodology we will see what? Several methods. Is that clear? So, whenever we are discussing methodology, we are looking at what? A set of what? Methods. But every method is what? Belongs to methodology. Is it not so? Is it true? So it's important that we look at this from that and we understand it at that point. So I have said that research methods are subsets of research methodology. We know what a subset is because in our secondary school we did set theory. So a set is the collection of things. Like we are here in this hall, we have formed a set of students. Is it true? Good. So when we eat any fraction of this becomes what? A subset of the set. So research methods are subsets of research methodology. And what do they do? Research methods seek to answer what did the researcher use to complete his research. What did he use to complete his research? That is what a research method or research methods are talking about. But for methodology, but research methodology encompasses all the research methods used and the logic behind their adoption. You will agree with me that when you are embarking on your research, you have a research methodology, which is what? A set of all the methods that you have used. You agree with me up to this point? Good. When you are presenting the set of methods that you have used, which is in your research methodology, there may be so many other methods that you did not use, you did not include in your own study. Is it true? And the question will now be, why did you not use them? And why did you use the ones you have used? And the simple answer to it is what? Suitability of what? The use of methods. Which means for a specific research, there are specific methods that are needed to be used to do what? To carry out that particular research. You understand that? As a result, for every other one that I am not using, they are not in use because they are not suitable. Is that clear? So in research methodology, I will be talking about what? All the methods that I have used in my research. And I will need to justify the use of them. Why they are used and not those ones that are not using. I hope it's clear. So that's why I said that it encompasses all the research methods used and the logic behind the adoption. Now, research methodology seeks to answer, how did the researcher complete his research? How did he complete his research? Next. So at that point, there may be so many other differences between research methods and research methodology. But what is important is just what I have presented. Is that clear? The difference between them. And you cannot complete your program, your research work here without having a research methodology. And in that research methodology, you have different methods, which are now talking about the methods that you have used and the precedence of those methods. How do I mean the precedence of the methods? The one that comes before the other. And then justifying why you have used them and how you have arranged them in that way. And that is why I said that the person that said it is step-by-step methods. That person is correct. And the person that said it's systematic methods, that person is equally what? Correct. Because you cannot talk about research methodology, even though you have two methods that you are using in your research. But you place the one that should have come first, you place it to come second. While the second one comes first, you are no more discussing presenting research methodology. It should be presented in such a way that there is what? A clearly defined steps that you are taking. At this point, I use this method to do this. When I have done that, at this point, I use this other method to achieve that until the end of it. And that becomes what? Research methodology. I hope it's clear. So, once we have a research methodology, and one of the things that must be done, very important aspect of every research methodology, especially in clinical research, is experiments. Okay? Which I will call design of experiments. An experiment is not restricted to the lab. Do we know that? When I mention experiment, I don't mean laboratory, because sometimes some persons, once you mention experiment, the person is looking at the lab. Your work must not be one that involves laboratory work. Is that clear? But at the same time, that's an experiment. It could be going to the field with an experiment. An experiment is, of course, a very systematic scientific approach that you are using to do what? To generate data. That becomes an experiment. Is that clear? So once that is done, data is generated. And at this point, we have followed every single thing that we do in research up to the point that we now have what? Data. We will still discuss elaborately on this issue of data. So, the only thing that is very important in every research for you to, especially in clinical research, is to do what? To collect data, to have data. And at the same time, we equally know that the correctness of the research finding largely depends on the what? On the data that is collected. Is it true? If I have the wrong data, I will definitely have what? The wrong research finding. It may be well packaged to the extent that it sounds so wonderful. But how it sounds is not as important as the correctness of the data. What makes a research is that I have what? Valid data set. And as a result, it is important that we know that data collection is a very important aspect of every research. So generally, data may be defined, as I put it here, as a set of information obtained for the purpose of knowing more about the system. Every set of information that I have, and the purpose of having information is to know more about that particular system. Then what do I have? I have the data set. I went further to say in statistics, the word data refers to a collection of numerical information obtained from all or some units of the system for the purpose of studying the system. I understand very well that for us that work with human beings, sometimes we may want to find certain information about human beings that will be our data. And it may even just be the interview. Is it true? Do we conduct interview to collect data? Good. And when we conduct such interview, it becomes just a text. We are just discussing with someone and the person is giving responses. And the person's responses becomes what? Data. Is that clear? Yes. For us in statistics, such information, even though it is data, but we don't first of all regard it as what? As data. It has to be processed for it to become real data. There is only one thing that statistics understands, and that is what? Numerical information. Numerical information. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is what we understand. Is that clear? So, for us to be able to say that we have data in statistics, it is only when we have numbers. And that is why I say that in statistics, the word data refers to a collection of numerical information. So if I have a collection of information that are non-numerical, for us, we don't see it as data. We only see it as what? Information. We are going even further. I said they are obtained as realizations of values of the characteristics of the system, known as variables. Every single thing that you see as the numerical information is actually a value of a defined variable. That's understood. I will explain further as we move. What then is a variable? A variable, I said, is a characteristic of a system which varies from one unit of the system to another unit of the system. Any characteristic of a system that is not a constant, it varies as you move from one unit to the other. If, for instance, someone is conducting a research where the human beings are participants, then they become the units of the what? Of the study. Is that clear? So, any characteristic of those individuals that I'm going to use for my study that changes as you move from one individual to the other is what? It's a variable. Is that clear? Let me see it as an example. Okay. I said a scientific study of a system. Next. A scientific study of a system, therefore, may be regarded as a study of the behavior and interrelatedness of the variables characterizing the system. What do I mean by that? When we are conducting any research, we are actually conducting research on different variables. Did you get what I said? Maybe if it's more important for us to be taking the snapshots, I will tell her to go through all of them so that they will snap all of them. Okay. I've been informed to tell you that the PowerPoint will be made available to you. Okay. So let us have one house on the lesson. It will be made available to you. If I answer this question, I'll tell you when. The next question will be how will you come? Yes, Lord. So a scientific study of a system, I say, may be regarded as a study of the behavior and interrelatedness of the variables characterizing the system. So whenever we are carrying out a research, we are actually researching the variables. That is exactly what we do. Even when you say that you are studying human beings, you are studying maybe the behavior of this or behavior of that. What we are studying is actually variables that do what? That characterize those individuals. There is no study that is centered on a particular individual. For one to say that I'm conducting a research on an individual. No. What we study are what? Variables that characterize the individuals. So that at the end of my study, I will be reporting on that particular variable. Is that clear? That these individuals behave in this way by reason of that particular defined variable. Is that understood? I have one example. I said example on a research on the prevalence of malaria in a specified locality with the people characterized by the level of education, age distribution of the people, level of awareness of the people about the disease, the gender mix of the people, economic classes of the people, cultural background of the people, level of acceptability of vaccination in the study area, dietary conditions of the people, incidence rate of the disease in the locality, availability of hospitals in the locality, among many others. If I want to carry out a study on prevalence of malaria in a particular locality, my interest at this point will not be targeted on individuals. Do you understand? My interest will be on these variables. Because it is the variables that will help me to bring about the prevalence. If, for instance, I have a locality and one of the variables that is playing out is maybe cultural background of the people. And these are people maybe according to their culture, they don't believe in something like maybe taking drugs, for instance. Let's use that as an example. You will find out that the prevalence of malaria will be higher in such a place. Is it not so? By reason of their cultural background. So when we are studying prevalence in this nature, we are studying prevalence based on these variables. And it is because of this that this becomes what somebody will now be able to say, if I have carried out this study in a particular locality, so long as these variables change in another location, let me do what? Carry out the same study in that place. Why? Because these variables are no more the same. I hope it's clear. So when we are carrying out a particular study, we are looking at the variables on that study, the variables of the locality, the variables that define those individuals that we find in the locality, that we find in that system. It is these variables that we actually look at, that will come up. To the extent that if we are defining, we will not come up and say that we have carried out this research and these people, that the prevalence of malaria is maybe there is maybe 20% prevalence rate of malaria in that place. If I put such a finding, it is a blanket finding. You know, so one will be able to find no. Now that there is 20% prevalence rate, what about this? What about that? I will be reporting this prevalence rate, given these variables, given that they are like this, that they are like that, that if this happens to them, at the end, this is their prevalence rate. So that someone else who may be interested in such will now begin to look at it. If I go to another location where these variables have varied, then I will be able to do what? Carry out the same prevalence rates. Is that understood? Okay. Yes. So I said that in this regard, immediate data for the study shall be formed by the values of these variables. The values of the variables of the study form the data that we collect whenever we go to the field. I hope it's understood. If, for instance, in that example I gave before, where we are talking about the prevalence of malaria in a particular locality, for us to be able to get that, when we get information on their level of education, okay, we get information on the age distribution of the locality. Is that clear? We will get information on the level of awareness of the people. We will get information on the economic class of the people. We get information on these variables. So it is when we have got information on these variables, these are the information that we are now going to analyze for us to be able to come up with our finding. Is that clear? So, having said that, we now begin to take it off from that point to begin to discuss variables. We have two types of variables. And what are them? Qualitative variables and quantitative variables. Qualitative variables are variables that are non-numerical. They take only non-numerical values. I hope it's clear. While quantitative variables are variables that take what? Numerical values. If I use an example, like in that example, I was looking at examples of variables. I said one of them is level of education. Is level of education a qualitative variable or quantitative variable? It is a qualitative variable because there is no numerical measurement for the levels of education. Is that clear? If one decides, the person will say, maybe your highest level of education, maybe the first will be because we are still in this century, there are still some persons that don't have any level of education. Is it possible? Good. As a result, the first will be no formal what? Education. The second will be primary level of education. The third will be secondary level, and the fourth will be tertiary level of education. For instance, no formal education, primary level, secondary level, and tertiary level. These things are not numerical. Is it not so? So, level of education is the qualitative variable. While quantitative variables are those that take numerical values. For instance, if you tell someone the age of a patient, is it qualitative or quantitative? It's quantitative, because you will be able to measure a numerical value of the age of the patient. So it is a quantitative variable. So under the quantitative variables, we have two types of quantitative variables. Number one is discrete variable. Number two is continuous variable. Two of them are quantitative. Now, what is a discrete variable? A discrete variable is a variable that takes only integral values. What do we mean by integral values? Counting values. What are counting values? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it true? Good. So, any variable that takes only counting value becomes what? A discrete variable. If, for instance, I want to give a very simple example of a discrete variable. If someone wants to find out the number of persons in this hall, what is the time now? Okay, by maybe 1:30 every day of this week. The number of persons in this hall by 1:30 p.m. every day of this week. Do you think it is going to be the same? It's not going to be the same. The person comes on Sunday. Maybe there is no person in this hall by 1:30 p.m. So the number of persons becomes what? 0. The person comes here on Monday. Maybe there are 7 persons in here. They're not by 1:30 p.m. The value becomes what? 7. Maybe the person comes on Tuesday, there are 50 persons. The value becomes 50. And they continue to do what? To vary in that way. So it is a variable, and it is discrete. Why is it discrete? It is not possible for us to come here every day by 1:30 p.m. and we will see maybe 2.5 persons in this hall. Is it possible? It is not possible to find a 2.5 persons, number of persons here. So number of individuals, number of anything is always what? Discrete. So it is a discrete variable. The next one is a continuous variable. A quantitative variable is said to be continuous if it takes real values. When we say real values, that's what you know in mathematics are real numbers. Numbers from -infinity to infinity. They are called the real numbers. They include all the possible values. So the extent that numbers between 0 and 1 is what? You cannot count the number of values between 0 and 1. Can you count them? No human being can count the number of values between 0 and 1. It is uncountable. So any variable that includes such values 2.124, 2.001, 7.825, and so on. So any value that includes such a function is what? Is a continuous variable. And an example of such is something like the ages of patients, the age of patients. if I want to define the age of patients in years, even if I define it in months, it is still a continuous variable. Why? Because if it is not, it is possible, but it's not very likely that maybe someone who says that, maybe there's someone here who says that he's 30 years. That person that is 30 years of age, it is possible, but it is not very likely that this just now that this person is saying I'm 30 years, that person clocked 30 years. The person is saying I'm 30 years this year, probably because maybe he has had his last birthday as 30 years. Is that clear? Which may be 3 months ago, which may be 2 months ago, which may even be January. Is that understood? So in such a situation, age of patients is what? A continuous variable. What do we do when we take age values by what is your age? I'm 30 years, you record 30. So this person, what is their age? I'm 45, you record 45. This other person, what is their age? I'm 70, record 70. What we do is that we just approximate the ages to be in years. Is that clear? But it does not mean that that is actually that person's age. Every age must be 70 point something, that's 30 point something, and so on and so forth. So the age of patient is what? Is continuous. So I have presented next. I presented the concept of variable. So be qualitative and quantitative. Then when I come to quantitative, it will be discrete and then continuous. Is that clear? And we have explained all of them. Now we now want to look at another type of variable. There are other types of variables. We have what we call response variable and the studied variable, or studied variables. I said that these are variables that are under study. Variables under study are known as the studied variables or response variables. For instance, in a study to determine the rate of typhoid fever among the pregnant women in a locality, the number of such cases observed is the value of the study variable. Is that clear? Because the study variable is the what? The rate of typhoid fever among pregnant women in a locality. If I have 10 cases of typhoid fever amongst pregnant women, then the value of that study variable becomes what? That number which is there. Is that clear? But that is not the only type of variable, because there are other variables that are not study variables. And one of them is what you know as the grouping variables. What is a grouping variable? I say this is the type of variable that is used in research to categorize respondents or responses. The type of variable that is used in research to categorize responses or respondents. Next. I said, for example, if in the rate of typhoid fever case, if in the rate of typhoid fever case, which we presented before, if it is that interest is to determine the rate according to the age of pregnancy, then maybe trimester, for instance, becomes what? The grouping variable. Is that clear? So when we have, it is possible that maybe in that locality, let's assume, for instance, there are 20 pregnant women who have cases of what? Typhoid fever. Is that clear? And we now begin to group those 20 pregnant women according to trimester. Maybe out of these 20, 10 are in their first trimester. Is that clear? Maybe 8 are in their second, while only 2 are in their third. We have used trimester to do what? To group them. So the study variable is the rate of a typhoid fever. But the grouping variable has become what? Trimester. Is that clear? So that when we are reporting, we will now, instead of a blanket report of that the case is that maybe 20 pregnant out of 170 pregnant women, and 20 of them have typhoid fever. And with that, we can use it to build a rate that is 20 over what? 70. Is that clear? But instead of making this blanket report, which may be deceptive, it may not be able to help maybe the health personnel to know what to do. As a result, somebody may say, out of these 20 pregnant women that have typhoid fever that we saw, what is their what? Trimester. Do you understand? When we now treat them according to that, we will now be reporting for each of them. Is that clear? That will be able to make a better report and will be able to help maybe health management to be able to know what to do to arrest such a situation. I hope it's clear. So that is what we mean by grouping variable. So in the light of all the above, statistical data are collected as measurements obtained from the variables of interest, hence qualitative and quantitative data sets. So because that data sets that we normally collect whenever we are embarking on a research centers around the collection of data, which are measurements, we will now need to look at the scales of measurements so that we'll be able to know what type of scale are we using when we are measuring, so that we will be sure that we are using the right scale for the variable that we are trying to study. And that is what I have captured as the scales of measurements. Here, we shall discuss data in the light of the fact that they are obtained as measurements of variables. So I have said here, for example, I said here that there are 4 scales of measurement. Every simple numerical measure that you see, they belong to one of these 4 scales. Everything that we know to be what? A numerical value belongs to one of these 4. They are the nominal scale of measurement, the ordinal scale of measurement, the interval scale of measurement, and the ratio scale of measurement. We will look at each of them for us to be able to know what each of them means. And then we will look at when we should use each of them or when we are interested in each of them. So, the nominal scale is the first. I said that nominal scale are nothing but the categorical data and the numbers that are simply used to identify or name an attribute of a variable to represent a nominal scale of measurement. Categorical data or numbers that are used as what? Symbols to represent, to identify an attribute is simply a nominal scale. I'll give an example or several examples. In the other example that I gave before, where I mentioned so many measurements, I came across one of them, which all of us agreed is a qualitative variable. And that one was what? Level of education. For us to be able to analyze it, for instance, we are going to do what? Convert it to numerical data. Is that clear? Maybe no formal education is not numerical. Primary education is not numerical, and so on and so forth. For that to be used in research, I will first of all need to do what? Convert it to a numerical value. How do I convert it? I convert it by doing what? Using an attribute to categorize. Someone may say, maybe 10 persons are conducting this research where the level of education is a variable that is of importance. One may say, let my levels of education be no formal education 10, primary education 20, secondary education 50, and tertiary education 100. To such a person, the person has how many values? 4, 10, 20, 50, and 100. Another person may say, let my no formal education be 0, primary education 1, secondary education 2, and tertiary education 3. So his own values are what? 0, 1, 2, and 3. Another person may say, let my no formal education be -4, primary education -3, secondary education -2, and tertiary education -1. To this person, he has his values. He will be getting values -4, -3, -2, -1. I hope it's clear. What are actually those values? They are nothing but what? Symbols. Is that clear? They are nothing but symbols. And because they are symbols, there is something that is a characteristic of all of them. You cannot do addition with such numbers. Do you know why? If I have used 0, 1, 2, 3 as these values, 2 minus 1 is what? 1. When I now say, what is 2 in this example? 2 is secondary education, is it not so? 1 is what? Primary education. 2 minus 1 equal to 1. Will I now say that secondary education minus primary education is equal to primary education? Is it what it is? Will I say that a secondary education minus another secondary education is equal to no formal education? Will I say so? No. So there is there's nothing to do with it. There is no computation, there is no calculation, there is no addition, there is no subtraction, nothing. They are nothing but what? Symbols. I hope it's clear. They are converted in such way so that I will be able to, maybe assuming I want to do calculation, so that I will be able to calculate with something. Not that I can subject those values to any calculation. They cannot go for any calculation. I hope it's clear. They are just the categories, this group, that group, and that group. But I have numbered them 1, 2, 3. And they cannot be used for any other thing. They remain at that level. I have used an example here. Maybe 1 for male and 2 for female as the values of maybe variable sex or gender. 1 for less than 20 years, 2 for between 20 and 50 years, and the 3 for more than 50 years are the values of the variable age group. 1 for A, 2 for B, 3 for AB, and the 4 for O as the values of blood group. I hope it's understood. So all of these are nothing but what? Symbols that are used to represent non-numerical values. They are not actually real values. So, having said that, the next one is ordinal scale. Ordinal scale of measurement is a scale of measurement in which values of the variable of interest represent the categories that differ quantitatively in terms of their order. So there is one thing that is clear about ordinal scale of measurement. Sorry, next. So in ordinal scale is almost like nominal scale of measurement. But there is only one advantage ordinal scale has over nominal scale. And what is that advantage? The advantage is that there is what? Order. Order. What do I mean by order? One will be able to know that something is higher than the other. Is that clear? So that is the only thing advantage ordinal scale has over what? Nominal scale. I have an example too. Where I said, in a research to determine level of satisfaction of patients with treatment given to them in a hospital, we want to look at the patient's level of what? Satisfaction. There may be values like 1, 2, 3, and what? 4. 4, not satisfied, which means 1 means what? Not satisfied. 2 means what? Fairly satisfied. 3 means what? Satisfied. And the 4 means what? Very much satisfied. This is very, not very. Very much satisfied. Is that clear? In this case, when someone scores 4 and another person scores 2, already you know the order. What is the order? The order is that this person is, the level of satisfaction of this person is higher than the level of satisfaction of this one. I hope it's understood. So in this case, order is what? Important. In ordinal scale of measurement, there is what? Order, and it is important. But at the same time, not minding the fact that order is what? Important. That is the only advantage he has over the nominal scale. But even at that, I say that in this type of data, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are not possible. It is not possible to say maybe satisfied plus non-satisfied. It will be equal to what? Because we have said here that 1 is what? Not satisfied. Is it true? 2 is what? Fairly satisfied. So if I say 1 plus 2 is what? 3, ordinarily. Is it not so? But when we look at this, not satisfied plus fairly satisfied, is it actually equal to satisfied? It's not equal to that. So we see that we cannot add this scale. We cannot subtract in this scale. We cannot multiply in this scale. We cannot divide in this scale. I'm sure it's understood. The third scale of measurement is what we call the interval scale of measurement. Interval scale of measurement. In interval scale of measurement, it is better than the nominal scale, better than the ordinal scale, but yet every algebraic manipulation are still not possible with it. Sorry, what I mean is that every calculation, we cannot still accommodate every calculation. What do we mean by interval scale of measurement? We say that in interval scale of measurement, the exact differences between the values are known, in addition to knowing the order. You see, in the nominal scale, nothing is known. There are nothing but words, symbols, means of identity. Is that clear? But in the ordinal scale, order has been added, even though there are still means of identification. But yet, we can say that one is better than the what? the other. So order is important in ordinal scale. Now in the interval scale, something has been added. And what is that? We say that exact differences between the values are known. We will be able to know that this minus this is equal to this. Is that clear? I have an example. I said, for instance, this scale has no true zero. It is important that we know that it has no true zero. Nothing is actually zero in this scale. There is what we know as true zero. What is true zero? True zero is what? Nothing. Okay? But in this scale, there is no true zero. Zero does not mean nothing. That's the point you are trying to make. So I have an example. I say the scale has no true zero, but zero is simply an additional point of measurement. I have an example. The example, I said for temperature measurements in degrees Celsius, 10 degrees minus 10 degrees is equal to what? 0 degrees. Is it true? But 0 degrees, is it nothing? It is not nothing. It is a value. Is it not so? It's a temperature value. So that's why I say now 0 degrees does not mean no temperature. Does it mean no temperature? No. But yet another temperature value. Also, 10 degrees plus 10 degrees is equal to what? 20 degrees. Yes, 20 degrees is not twice as hot as 10 degrees. It's important to note that. But what we note is that 20 degrees Celsius is higher than what? 10 degrees Celsius. But 2 times 10 degrees Celsius is not in other words, 2 times 10 is 20. But 20 degrees Celsius is not as hot as what? 10. It's not as hot as double of 10 degrees Celsius. It is yet another value of what? Temperature. So in such a situation, this is the case of interval scale of measurement. I says in this scale, multiplication and division, they are not possible, but addition and subtraction is possible. Next. The last scale is the ratio scale of measurement. And I said that in this ratio scale, it has to do 0. Where 0 means what? Nothing. In the ratio scale, 0 means true 0, which is what? Nothing. As a result, both addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are what? Possible. And the example is the height in meters. 10 meters plus 10 meters is equal to what? 20 meters. If I bring the 2, double of 10 meters, I am getting 20 meters. Nothing will make it shorter, nothing will make it more. Do you understand? At the same time, and I said, and the 20 meters is twice 10 meters. Also, 0 meter simply means what? No height value. It means nothing. There is no distance at all is covered. So it has a true 0. And as a result, in this case, addition is possible, subtraction is possible, multiplication is possible, division is possible. Now I said statistics and tests permissible in each scale. We will still get to, because as we continue, we will still get to all of these, the statistics and everything about it. But we want to find out the ones that are permissible for each of these data sets. We'll start with number 1, which is the nominal scale. When we have nominal scale, which I have said are nothing but what? Symbols means of identification. When we have it, I cannot do addition, I cannot do subtraction, multiplication, and division. They are not possible. The only statistics that is possible with it is what? Frequencies, proportions, percentages, and the chi-square test. Why these are the statistics that are possible? The only test, statistical test that is possible is what? Chi-square test. That is what is possible. When I have maybe patients in the hospital that are suffering from a particular disease, and I'm interested in looking at their blood group, and I will group them according to their blood group. And when I have done that, then my interest will now be the frequencies. Out of these patients, how many of them are coming from this particular blood group? How many are coming from the other blood group? How many are coming from the other blood group? I hope it's clear. That is what we mean by frequencies. While again, proportion is still the same thing. Out of all of them, what is the proportion of those that have blood group A? Proportion in this case is what? The number that are having blood group A divided by what? Total of all of them. To the extent that if I add all the proportions, I will be able to get what? I will be able to get 1. I hope it's clear. Again, percentages. Proportion and percentage are the same thing. They are saying exactly the same thing, but the only difference is their scale. Proportion is measured in the scale of 1, while percentage is measured in the scale of what? 100. The two of them are saying exactly the same thing. I hope it's clear. Now, when we have looked at this, when I have identification, I can group them to have proportions, I can group them to have percentages. Percentage of these patients that are coming from this group, percentage of patients that are coming from that group, and so on and so forth. But when I have done that, I can conduct the only test that is permissible here is what? Chi-square test. One may want to find out, when we get to chi-square test, we are going to find out different kinds of chi-square tests. But for instance, one may want to find out if these the proportions, if they are the same. Okay? As we move from one, like the example I have painted, blood groups of patients. One we want to find out their proportions, are they the same? Or do they differ significantly as we move from one blood group to another blood group? Is that clear? So the only way to carry out this test is carrying out the chi-square test. I hope it's clear. So that is the only test that is permissible under it. And that is the only statistical test that one can use when one has nominal data sets. I hope it's clear. The next is ordinal. Ordinal data set. When I have one has an ordinal data set in research, you can do the frequencies, you can do the proportions, you can do the percentages, you can as well carry out a chi-square test. But in addition, one can find the mode and the median. One can find the mode and the median. Like in that example where I gave, which I gave about ordinal scale of measurement, where I talked about what? Level of satisfaction. We remember where we have not satisfied, very satisfied, satisfied, and very much satisfied. There are 3 scales there. One will be able to, one can do the proportion of each of them. One can do the percentage of each of them. One can as well be able to find out the modal what? Scale. How do I mean? What is mode? The mode of result of data. Good, the highest occurring. A particular scale that has the highest frequency of occurrence is what? The mode. Is it not so? So one will be able to find the mode. That out of the whole of these patients that were interviewed, that majority of them have said what? That they are satisfied, for instance. I hope it's understood. For that majority are saying that they are what? That they are not satisfied. I hope it's understood. That is the only thing that can be done there. We can find the move. We can as well find the median. What is the median? Median of a set of numbers is what? The number at the middle one. When the set has been arranged in an order of magnitude. Is that clear? So you can arrange all the responses, not satisfied, satisfied, not very well satisfied, and so on. We can arrange them. 1, 2, 3. Arrange them in that. When we have arranged them, we'll be able to pick the one at the middle. It is possible that when we have arranged them across the set of data that we have, let us assume that 2 is at the middle. 2 means what? Fairly satisfied. Is that clear? We can say that on the average, that the patients are fairly satisfied. Is that clear? So the median is possible, the mode is possible. But apart from 2 of them, no other thing is what is possible. It is wrong to begin to find the mean of an ordinal scale, because the mean does actually not mean anything. I hope it's clear. So when we get to interval scale, all of things that we have mentioned are all possible, including the word now, the mean, the standard deviation, and their tests. We can find the test of the mean, we can find the test of the standard deviation. They are all possible in this interval scale. And finally, in the ratio scale, we have said in the ratio scale, all in interval scale plus any other measure is possible. Did you get what I said? I will repeat it again. In the ratio scale of measurement, every single computation that has ever existed is what? Is possible. We can do any type of computation that is possible. It is what? Permissible. And every statistical test that is possible can be conducted. I hope it's clear when we have a ratio scale of measurement. Next.
Hello everyone. So because we kept you very long without eating, we interrupted the lecture. So we want you to give you 30 minutes to eat. You want to swallow it, because today will be ending around 4 hours. So you will also go and eat yourself and come back.
All of in our various research work we conduct, we go about data collection and we normally go into sampling, which we have come to look at. So I have said that the statistical data can be collected from all the possible units in a system. And when that is done, we have what we call a population set or a population data set. When I'm conducting a research and I have all the units in the population, and I go ahead to collect information from all of them. When that is done, what I have is a population data set. The most at times, in most situations, it is almost impossible to collect data from all the units in a population. It's almost impossible. And that is why we always resort to collecting data from a sample. And data can be collected from a selected number of units from all the possible units in the system. And when we have such, we have a sample data set. So with what we have said so far, there are two types of data sets. One is population data set, and the second is a sample data set. Population where we collect from all the possible units of the population, and the sample where we just collect from a sample, a fraction of all the possible units in the population. Therefore, what is sampling? When we have noted what a sample is, the process of getting that sample is what we know as what? Sampling. That's why I say that sampling is defined as a scientific method of selecting and using a representative part of a population to seek the truth about the population. If, for instance, we collect data from all the units in the population, and we have a population data set, then there is nothing else that we are going to be doing. All that we will be reporting to, whatever thing we see in that population, we report it. It is actually not subjected to rigorous statistical tests. The reason is because we have collected all the information we needed to collect, and therefore there is nothing else that we need that we don't have. But like I have said, getting information from a population by the use of a population data set is almost impossible. The reason is because sometimes we don't even know all the units of the population. Sometimes even when we know all the units of the population, we cannot reach all of them. For instance, I'm studying and carrying out a study on, like we have been discussing. Somebody wants to carry out a study in the southeast Nigeria, for instance. They will find out that southeast Nigeria comprises a number of states. And in these states, we have different local governments. And for me to be able to get all the units that I am studying in Southeast Nigeria, I will need to visit all the nooks and crannies of in Southeast Nigeria to get information from all the units under study. And most of the times it is not possible. It's not possible in so many ways. It is only possible when, for instance, Nigeria decides to organize a census, what is called national census. At that point in time, every individual is enumerated. But if it is not census, then it is not possible. And an individual will almost not be able to conduct a census. I hope you understand what I'm saying. And it is because of this that makes research beautiful, that we want to look at a population, but we are looking at a population through just a few that are collected from that population. To the extent that whatever thing that we are able to find out from that few, we will use it to generalize for the entire population. That is what makes research beautiful. I hope it's clear. And what it then means is that for one to be able to do that, that whatever thing that you are going to be doing, you are going to be doing it for a population. Some of these units you don't even know, but you are studying a certain population. And you won't be able to get information from all these populations, but you are going to depend on a fraction of units that you have selected from this population, so that whatever result that you are getting from that fraction, you'll be using it to generate for the population. If that is the case, it then means that the result we are going to be getting to a very large extent will depend on the fraction that you have selected. Is it true? If, for instance, you go ahead to select just anyhow fraction and you call it a sample, remembering the fact that this is going to represent the population, if you select something that is not representative of the population, the result that you are going to be getting will not be representative of the population. And as a result, whatever thing you will be reporting will be wrong. And that now means that the way in which we select the few from the population to represent the population is of paramount importance. I hope it's clear. And that is why we must take our time to use appropriate method of selecting the few from the entire population, and which I said is the process is known as sampling. And I said here that in research, data collection involves two things. And what are those two things? Sampling and survey, known as sample survey. How do we mean by that? First of all, selecting a few individuals from where we want to get the information, that is number one. Then number two is getting the information from those selected individuals. I hope it's clear. There are two things. I select the individuals I want to do what? Get the information from. And the second part is what? I get the required information from them. And that is sample survey. Yes? So sample survey is defined as the collection and the examination of data from a sample in order to make inferences about the population. That is sample survey. Collection and examination of data from a sample in order to make inferences about the population. It is important that I mention this here. You know what? There is an area of specialization that people call statistics as a branch of study. Okay? What makes the statistics a branch of study is because of the sample survey. If you remove the sample survey, then there is nothing like the statistics as a branch of the study. How do I mean? If you remove sample survey, then every time we want to carry out investigation, we must get to the what? To the entire population. And if you get information from the entire population, there's nothing else you are going to be doing that is called the statistics. What you need to do is to do what? Just to count what you have seen and then report it. You understand? But the statistics as a branch of study is because statistics tries to look at what? The best way to pass a conclusion about a population on the basis of a sample, on the basis of results obtained from a sample. I hope it's clear. And that is what we call statistical inference. If you remove statistical inference, then there's nothing like statistics as a branch of study. So everything in statistics as a branch of study deals with what? Statistical inference, which is looking at a population from the point of view of a very few fraction that is selected from that population, and then using the result obtained from that very few to generalize for that population. As a result, we say that sample survey theory deals with the process of sample selection, data collection, estimation of the population characteristics, that is parameters of interest, using the sample data collected and determining the accuracy of the estimates. So everything that we do in statistical inference on the theory of sample theory is the process of carrying out sample selection. When we have a population, what is the best way for us to do what? To select a few from that population, so that we will be saying that what we have selected has represented that population. Because if we select a few from the population and what we have selected does not represent the population, what it means is that whatever finding that we are getting from that few cannot be said to be what? Cannot be said to be representative of that population, because the sample that we selected is wrong. And that is why sampling is a very important aspect of research. To be able to get an appropriate few from a population that can represent that population. And when we have collected selected the sample, we collect data from the sample, use the data that was collected from the sample to do estimation about the population characteristics. And then whatever thing that we have estimated is determining the accuracy of both estimates. When that is well, we will say that we are discussing statistical inference. So the study statistics are the branch because of this. So, I've been, okay, the information is that the PowerPoints are already in your phones. So you can just be following from there while you work. So the sampling techniques, because of the importance of it, can we continue, please? So sampling techniques. Because of the importance of sampling, we have different techniques that we make use of. Because all the techniques of sampling are also divided into two. And what are they? Probability sampling techniques and non-probability sampling techniques. I am sure that you know what probability is. Do we? You know what probability is? When I asked this question first, I had a yes. When I became more serious about this, the answer changed to no. Probably they were afraid I would ask them. You know, because I wanted to ask her, she wanted to do that. So, she knows. Tell us, please. Okay, chances of occurrence. Good. What is the probability? Or if I will put it together, the likelihood of occurrence of an event is the probability. When something is likely to occur, then that thing has the chance of what? Occurring, which means they have the probability. So the likelihood of occurrence of events is the probability. So we are talking about the probability and non-probability sampling techniques. We will look at them one after the other. What is the probability sampling technique? We say that probability sampling technique is also known as random sampling. And it is the type of sampling where every unit of the population has a non-zero chance or non-zero probability of being selected in the sample. When one is conducting a probability sampling technique, what it simply means is that every unit of the population has what? At least a chance of being selected. It is possible that all the units don't have equal chance of being selected. It is possible that some have more chances of being selected than others. But even those ones that don't have as much chance of being selected as others, there is no impossibility of them to be selected. There is still, no matter how small, there is the probability of them being selected in the sample. So when we are looking at such a sampling technique, we will call it what? Probability sampling technique. Then the other type is, maybe we will continue with probability sampling technique. There are different types of probability sampling techniques. One, which is the commonest and the simplest type of probability sampling technique, is known as the simple random sampling. And what is simple random sampling technique? Simple random sampling technique is a type or a technique of sampling where each of the units of the population has an equal chance of being selected in the sample. So, in simple random sampling technique, if we have a population of 100 and we want to select a sample of 10, all these 100 units in that population, they all have what? Equal chance of being selected in the sample. So in such a situation, we call it simple random sampling technique. When we still look at how it is done or how we do that, but there is one thing that is important as we will be embarking on research. For our population to be subjected to simple random sampling technique, there is one feature of that population that will determine that. And that feature is what? Homogeneity of what? Of that population with respect to the variable of our interest. It is important that we say at this point that the homogeneity of a population is not homogeneity in every sense, but homogeneity in terms of the variable that is of interest to us. How do I mean? A particular population may be homogeneous in respect to one variable, but it is heterogeneous with respect to another variable. And I will give a very simple example. Maybe one gets to the hospital and the person is trying to collect information from patients. And when he gets to this place to collect information from patients, let us assume that the patients that are in that hospital or in the world where the person has got to collect this information are all males. Is that clear? So in terms of gender, the patients, which is the population, are what? Homogeneous. But as the person gets into this main world to collect this information, not minding the fact that they are homogeneous in terms of gender, the person now looks at their age. In fact, in this world, where there are 16-year-old patients, there are 70-year-old patients, there are 44-year-old patients. So in terms of age, these patients are what? Heterogeneous. So, if the interest that I have for my research is with respect to gender, then this population is what? Homogeneous already. And because it is homogeneous, I can conduct a simple random sampling to collect my sample. But if my interest is on age, this population is heterogeneous. I cannot use simple random sampling method in a heterogeneous population. When the population is heterogeneous with respect to the variable of my interest. I hope it's understood. Good. So when we have a homogeneous population with respect to the variable of interest, the best technique to be used to collect sample is simple random sampling method. And we know what simple random sampling method is. I will very quickly explain what it is. What it is that I am not interested in a particular person or a particular unit. All I want to do is to randomize that population and pick the number of individuals I want to pick in my sample. And how do I mean? Supposing I want my sample size to be 10, for instance, I will randomize, make sure that I have applied a randomization technique on the population. And once that has been done, whatever persons units I have selected, 10 of them I have selected becomes what? My sample. And how do we apply randomization technique? Oftentimes, those days when they used to play lottery, where we see that the tickets will be poured into a container. And when they are poured into a container, and they want to select maybe positions, maybe first position, second position, third position, for instance, this selection is done one after the other. Is that clear? So if they want to select the first position, when all of them are still in that container, they will begin to reshuffle the container, all the tickets. They continue to reshuffle. What are they trying to do? It is a randomization technique to make sure that all of them have the same chance of being selected. So that somebody will not say that I was not selected because my ticket was what? Was under. This person was selected because his ticket was on top. So we apply randomization technique. And after reshuffling and reshuffling and reshuffling over and over, it is now assumed that all of them have been made to be of the same chance. But anyone that is selected is simply selected by what? By chance. And somebody is asked to go and pick, and the person picks anyone there. Not one that is picked 100% by chance, because it could have been any other one. I hope it's clear. So in such a situation, that is kept. Then the next one, second position, the same thing. The shuffling again. After that, another one is in second position. Third position, shuffling and shuffling again. After that, another one is in third position. That is the end. I hope it's clear. Those ones that were not picked because they were disadvantaged. They were not picked by what? By chance. The ones that were picked not because they had advantage over those ones, but they were equally picked by what? By chance. And that is simple random sampling technique. There are two types of simple random sampling technique. There are two types of them. What are them? Simple random sampling technique with replacement, and the simple random sampling technique without replacement. When do we have a simple random sampling technique with replacement? With the example I have already talked about, in selecting 3 tickets out of maybe a number of them. If it is with replacement, when I have selected that first position, We will record the ticket number. After recording the ticket number, that ticket itself is thrown back into the container, and it is all of them are shuffled again. That one that has been selected one has another chance of what? Being selected again. No other one has a higher chance than it. I hope it's clear. All of them have three shares equal chance, and that one can be picked again for the second position. I hope it's clear. And after when it is picked, it's recorded, the number is recorded and it's thrown back again. To the extent that one individual has the chance of being selected over and over again. That is simple random sampling with what? Replacement. That is simple random sampling without replacement. The moment you are selected, you don't have a chance of being selected again. So once you are selected, you are assuming the total number of the population is 100. Once one is selected, the total number of the population for the next round of selection will be what? 99. And it continues to reduce until we have the required number that we need. That is simple random sampling without replacement. So the next type of probability sampling after simple random sampling is stratified random sampling. Stratified random sampling. And when do we use stratified random sampling? Or what do we mean by stratified random sampling? We say that when the study population is heterogeneous, when we have a heterogeneous study population, that is to say, the population is non-homogeneous in terms of the variable of our interest. What do we need to do? The population is first of all stratified into homogeneous subpopulations. By stratification here, we do what? We segment this population, or we divide this population, or we group this population. Is that clear? And the groups will be getting the what? Homogeneous subgroups or subpopulations. For instance, in that example I talked about, where we have patients and they are all males, male patients with different age value. And the age is important to us in this study. And for us to do that, we will first of all stratify the what? This population with respect to what? Age. And how do we live? We might say, let us group, the stratification is according to what we have known already in the literature. That maybe people from this age to that age, they behave the same way with respect to this study we are conducting. That group of people from this age to another age, they behave the same way. For instance, in this particular example, we might say maybe less than 20 years, one group. The second group, 20 to 40, group 2. The third group, maybe 41 to 70, another, or 41 to 60, the third group, and then the last group, above 60. Is that clear? So when we have partitioned a population according to these groups, according to these subgroups, we will now begin to apply the same simple random sampling in each group, subgroup, in each subpopulation. I'm sure it's understood.
Yeah.
And that when we do that, that is called the stratified random sampling. So I said in this way, a combination of all the units selected from each stratum forms the sample. How do I mean? Assuming I want to get a sample of 50, and I have a heterogeneous population which I have stratified according to their homogeneity, and I got maybe 4 different strata. I may decide that since I need 50 and I have 4 strata, I may say 12. I want to get 12 from each stratum. Is that clear? By the time I get 12 from stratum 1, 12 from stratum 2, until 12 in stratum 4. what I will have is 48. Is it not so? Therefore, because it is not going to be exactly equal, I may decide at random to select 13, 13 in 2 strata, 12, 12 in 2 strata, and that will give me the what? 50. By the time I go to each of these strata and they get the number, I will put all of them together, and what do I have? I have the sample that I need to work with. And all the individuals that are now selected in this sample, they have now become the what? The participants for the study. I'm sure it's understood. Is it understood? Yes. I said, okay, have a question. Maybe it's better with your question. Yes, ask the question.
The number from each strata is second. The number selected from each strata.
Okay. That is another thing entirely different from the one I have said. I thought they are going to ask the question that by asking your question that I will help to clarify others. But let me try and see if I'll be able to clarify what I have said. What I have said is that assuming we have, I want to make it specific now. Let's assume we have a sample of, we need to get a sample of 60 units that we want to have as our participants for a study we want to conduct. But when we have stratified this heterogeneous population into their homogeneous sub-populations or sub-units, we are able to get to 4 different strata. Let us assume that we now say, okay, since we have 4 different strata, let us select 15 from each stratum. By the time we select 15 from 4 of them, and we pull them together, what do I now have? 15 times 4, which is equal to what? 60. So that sample which I wanted to collect, which is the sample of size 60, I have actualized that. How did I actualize that? By selecting 15 from each of the sub-population. So by the time I now have 60 of them, I will put them together. I have now obtained my participant for the study. Is that clear now? To answer the question that came to us, I said there are different ways of determining the number of units to be selected for each stratum. And the person that asked the question did not look at that point. I think that is an answer to the question. Is that? He asked a question, and his question, if I should relate that, was, should we select the same number from each of the stratum? I guess that was the question. Was that the question? And I said here that there are different ways of determining the number of units to be selected from each stratum, also known as allocation of the sample size to strata. There are 2 of them that are most common. The 2 most commonly used methods are proportional allocation and equal allocation. The one I used when I was explaining, or when I was trying to explain, was what? Equal allocation, where I said sample of 60, we divide 60 by 4 because there are 4 strata and each of them is equal to 15. We go to each stratum and we select 15. So that when we bring 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15, we will have that 60 that we need. That is what equal allocation. Is that clear? But there are situations where equal allocation does not work well. The most commonly used method of allocation is proportional allocation. It is possible if, for instance, we go by equal allocation. In that example I presented, we remember that example where I partitioned the male patients into what? into 4, and we are looking for a sample size of 60. Let us assume that there are 400 in all the patients that we see, that there are 400 male patients that are partitioned into these 4 strata. Is that clear? Because these patients may not be equally represented in the hospital. You understand? It is possible that out of these 400 patients, only 5 are above 60 years. You understand? Only 5 are above 60 years. So the rest of 395 are below 60 years, or maximum of 60 years. You remember that our last strategy was what? Above 60 years. Do you understand? If we are doing equal allocation, for instance, it means that we are going to first of all get all of the 5 of them that are in that strategy. We will get 5 of them to be placed. You know, so where do we get the remaining 10 that will make up the 15 that we need for that strategy? Where do we get the remaining 10? I don't know if you are getting the picture I'm painting. So because of that, in most research, the most commonly used method of allocation is proportional allocation, where the size of the participants allocated into a particular strategy is proportional to the population of that strategy. I hope it's clear. If we are to use proportional allocation, that strategy of more than 60 years that have only what? 5 units, you may find out that is only one. One may be allocated to that particular strategy. So go to that strategy, select anyone. And once that one is selected, we are done with that strategy. I hope it's clear. The remainder of the 59 will be obtained from the rest of the what? The other 3 strata. I hope it's clear. And the essence of that is so that we are looking at representative sample. If we use equal allocation may not give what the representative sample. What if in that entire population of 400 patients, those from 20 years to 40 years, let us assume that there are 300. What it means is that predominant age for that particular sickness is between what? 20 and what? 40. So if we do equal allocation, we'll give 15 to the other one, 15 to the other one. Even this one that has contributed more than 70% of the entire patients, we even select 15 from them. Don't you see that it's cheating? Is it not cheating? It is cheating. And since we have all agreed that it's cheating, for instance, assuming we have to share something to them, so they are going to protest. Is it not so? That we have the greatest number. And you are giving us, out of this greatest number, you are giving us only 15 slots. Well, this other one that they are only 20 in number. You give them the same 15, which means almost every one of them has received something. But for us, we are 300 and you have given us only 15. They are going to protest it. And just as they are going to protest it, if we should use that to go into research, the information we are going to get is going to be what? A wrong information that is not going to represent that population. Do you understand that? So for us to be able to be sure that we have a sample that has represented the population that we have studied, the only way and the best way to handle it is to go into what? Proportional allocation. So that the stratum that has contributed the highest will contribute the highest number in the sample. And the stratum that has contributed the least will contribute the least number in the sample. And with that, all of the entire population have been what? Appropriately represented. I'm sure it's understood.
Yeah.
Okay. So that has answered the question, right? There are still, yes, other methods of allocation, something like Neyman's allocation, but we are not going into that. Once we have mentioned the one that is the most appropriate. Okay, go ahead.
Given the we have this portion that have taken its constant, and let's say we have we needed like 50.
If we keep quiet, we can hear you.
So maybe we needed like 50 people in the group. Sorry, as a sample. Now we have a subgroup that has maybe just 5. Is it possible to make a modification whereby that total 5 can be maybe selected now, not proportionally? Maybe let's say since there are very few, let's just take their population and then we now the rest. We now subdivide the other.
We now need the rest.
No. Even we needed 50 samples.
Yeah.
But we have a story that we have just 5 people. Can we now say maybe it's likely the negative bias by saying let's take that because from what now you might come down to maybe only one for that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair.
Yeah.
But now if you say let's make a modification.
Maybe because they gave you a give, right? That they treated that way. Is there anything that is of interest to that particular structure that will let you to begin to think of methods? Since there are few, why not we just because there are 5, and if we select 2, the other 3 will feel somehow. Is it not?
Not saying the other 3. Even needed 50, maybe let's say population of maybe 200.
Yes.
And then this other stuff has maybe just 4 or 5.
Okay.
Now, let's say there are 3 or 4 subcategories.
Yes.
You may have enjoyed us like 50, 70 or thereabout, and
Yes.
they're not 5.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is it possible for us to like say since this group is very little, can we take their population?
Okay.
That's not applying the promotion to them.
Okay.
And let's say, just for and let me have which is the promotion as I say. It is likely that we might have just 1 or 0 points. So that's important for us also. Let us increase the little bias.
Okay, I got your question. Thank you very much for the question. And the question is like asking me what I have said. Is it possible that I can change it? You don't know what he's asking. This thing that you have said, is it possible you change it so that it's no longer be that which you have said? Let it be something else. My simple answer to that is nobody says that you must not or you must stick to something. Is that clear? But what we are talking of here is the best practice. What you will be doing, and you will be sure that you are not biased in any way. And because you are not biased in any way, that whenever you come to the point of getting information from them and analyzing it, you will be sure that you did not introduce any bias. And so, the result that we are going to get will be a bias-free result. That's the point we are trying to say. It is not, we know very well that so many things happen in research. Someone may even say, well, since these ones are the people that are available, if I should do this, I will need to travel, maybe from here to somewhere else, for me to be able to get information from this or other subgroup. So, because of that, I can save myself the stress of traveling. Let me just make do with people I have here. And then you make do with them. Analyze it, and it gives you result, and you report the result. I hope you are getting what I'm saying. But even you yourself know that result you are reporting is a biased result. Hope it's clear. Have I answered the question?
Yes.
So, according to best practice, what I'm saying is, by picking one out of that 5, you are not unfair to that group. You are 100% fair to the group because that is what is due to the group. And at the end of the day, that group is what? Represented the way they should be represented accurately. I hope it's clear. So as a result, that is what you do. So having said that, we are still discussing probability sampling. We have discussed simple random sampling. We have discussed systematic stratified random sampling. The next is systematic random sampling. Systematic. And what is a systematic random sampling method? For us to carry out, I will just explain that. From each name, systematic, we move from somewhere and we continue to move until we get all the sample that we need. And how do we do that? Let us assume that we want to get a sample of 10 students from this hall now. The way you go are seated. The first thing that I will do is to number all of you. Let us assume you are 100 in number. Everybody takes a number. 1, 2, 3, until where? Until 100. Because I want to select a sample of 10, only 10 from these 100 students, what do I need to do? I am going to divide this 100 by what? By 10. And when I have divided 100 by 10, what do I get? 10. So I have what I call 10 intervals of sampling. Then what I will need to do, from these 100 students that I have, which I have divided into 10, and each of them is 10. And we know that there are what? The first interval has what? 10 students. I'm going to, because it is still random sampling, and we are still looking at it as a method where each of the units has a chance of being selected. What do we need to do? I will come from that my list where I have the list of 1 to 10. It is that list of 1 to 10 that determines who else will be in the sample. If I pick at random the number 1 person, what I will be doing is what? Once I select number 1, plus 10 is what? 11. Plus 10 is what? 21. Plus 10 is what? 31. Until plus 10 is what? 91. When I count all the 1, 11, 21, 31 to 91, there are going to be 10 of them. I hope it's clear. And that becomes my sample. That is systematic random sampling. Someone else may decide, no, I don't want to, because we are choosing at random. We are choosing from 1 to 10 at random. Maybe at random, another person has chosen 5 at random. So, what is now going to consume the sample will be what? The 5th student, 15th student, 25th student, 35th student, 45th student until when? 95th student. I hope it's clear. Another person may at random choose 8 to bring his own random start. And once that 8 is selected, the next one will be what? 18th will be selected, 28 will be selected, 38 will be selected, until 98 will be selected. That is the sample. Another person may choose at random 10. I have chosen 10 at random. What it means is that what? The 10th student is selected, 20th student is selected, 30th student selected, until what? The 100th student is selected. And that becomes what? The sample. So in systematic sampling, what determines what happens to the rest of the individuals is what? Is within the first interval. Choosing as random what is called random start. And once the random start is picked, every other one will not continue to do what? To be selected in the same interval. I hope it's understood. That is systematic random sampling. The last we are going to look at in this under probability sampling is cluster sampling. Cluster sampling. What is cluster sampling? Cluster sampling looks like stratified sampling, but they are not the same. And it is important that we understand the difference between them. In stratified random sampling, we stratify the population by grouping them according to what? According to their homogeneity. Is it not so? So that when we have groups, we now employ simple random sampling in each of the subgroups to be able to select the sample that we need. I hope it's clear. Now, in cluster sampling, what we do is that we group all the population into their natural clusters, into different clusters or groups. And when we have done that, when we are done grouping them according to their natural clusters, we select using simple random sampling. We may select one or two of those natural clusters. And when we have selected maybe two of those natural clusters, all the units in those two selected have become what? The participants for our study. I hope it's understood. What do we mean by that? I will use an example. Maybe someone wants to conduct the research in this Enugu, and now decides, let us group the individuals for this particular study in this Enugu according to the areas. Maybe the person has something like one area. The person has a child area. The person has maybe a road area. The person has, and all the other areas, New Haven area. I hope you understand. So when we have grouped according to these natural clusters, because they are natural, there is nothing that, it is not any matter of any non-homogeneity. It is a matter of where each person does what, or each unit belongs. Is that clear? So when we have grouped according to this natural cluster, the person, let us assume there are 11 clusters that we have been able to make out in the Enugu. Out of these 11 clusters, and the person says, okay, let us at random choose 3 out of these 11 clusters. Maybe the person has chosen 3 localities in Enugu. Now the person, these 3 that have been selected at random, the person goes into those places, and then all the units that are contained in those 3 selected areas will now be what? Participants for the study. Okay, you are going back to what you were saying. The question, somebody is asking a question. How do we select those 3? Is it by balloting or by what? I have told us how we do simple random sampling. Simple random sampling is purely by what? That was what I have explained. Maybe you want to select 4 students out of 20 students. Your number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in 20 pieces of papers. Each one contains 1 to 20. Do you understand? And maybe we write them. And then we number the students. You push your number, take their numbers. You 1, 2, 3 until when? 20. Take note of their number. When you have taken note of, they have taken note of their numbers. You come. There are 20 pieces of papers. You begin to select them by balloting. You understand? I have explained the balloting before now. You reshuffle and pick one, reshuffle and pick one, reshuffle and pick another one. Until, assuming you want to select 4, you pick how many times? 4 times. When you have picked 4 times, you open the ones you picked. Maybe the first one you open is number 8. Who is number 8? You, come out. The next one you open is 2. Who is number 2? You, come out. The next one is number 18. Who is number 18? Come out. Then you call the 4th person, and with that you have done what? You have obtained your sample. In the same way, since we have clustered the Enugu urban into 11 clusters, what do we need to do? We have 1, 2, 3 to what? 11. And we are interested in selecting 3. We reshuffle and select 1, reshuffle and select 1, reshuffle and select. By the time we open, the first one we open, maybe Abba Road, Sapa Road has been selected in this study. The next one is open is New Heaven. New Heaven is selected in this study. The next one that is we have opened maybe is GRA. GRA is selected in this study. Do you understand? So this particular study is centered on what? The population of our study is what? Enugu urban. These 3 areas we have selected have now become representatives of what? Entire Enugu urban. I hope it's understood. So in this situation, let us assume that we are looking for maybe individuals that have a particular problem. I want to use something that appears to be simple. Let us look at maybe someone is studying the characteristics of people that are left-handed people, for instance. Are you getting me? So we have selected these 3 areas, Urban Road, New Heaven, and GRA. You go to Urban Road and are looking for what? All the left-handed individuals. Go to New Heaven, all the left-handed individuals. Go to GRA, all the left-handed individuals. Then you gather them together and they have become what? Participants of their study. I hope it's understood. This is cluster sampling. Cluster sampling can be in stages. What we have just explained is a single stage cluster sampling. There could be yet double stage cluster sampling or 2-stage cluster sampling. What is the 2-stage cluster sampling in this case? Maybe we have selected this in the first stage, we selected Urban Road, New Heaven, and the GRA. We will go to Urban Road and further do what? Cluster them. Go to GRA and further do what? Cluster them. Go to New Heaven and further do what? Cluster them. We will say that in Urban Road, we are going to select 2 subclusters. New Heaven, 2 subclusters. GRA, 2 subclusters. For instance, are you getting what I'm saying? It is possible that it may now be streets in Urban Road. 2 streets have been selected. 2 in New Heaven have been selected. 2 at GRA have been selected. So, in the first stage of the clustering, we selected 3 of them. In the second stage of clustering, we selected 2 streets from each of them. Therefore, in our study, we now do what? Only 2 streets in Urban Road are going to be part of the study. 2 streets in New Heaven will be part of the study. 2 streets at GRA will be part of the study. This will now be what? Will now form our participants. In the same way, there could be 3-stage cluster sampling. There could be 4-stage cluster sampling. So the clustering depends on the what? Your ability to identify natural ways of further clustering of each of those selected clusters. Is that clear? Yes. Any question? Okay. Don't worry. We are going to adjourn. I have got the permission of the coordinator for us. But I will call on the coordinator to address the people on the time that we are going to start tomorrow.
Can you give me a round? And you also have to thank the dean who decided to get a resource person that can handle it. So you have to be grateful to the faculty too and your dean. So tomorrow we did not do our registration because the lady that was supposed to do it stepped out. She's supposed to do it that time we were on break. So tomorrow come on time by 8. So that before he starts by 9, he's already on ground. He's not coming from Nsukka again. So we are sure we are starting by 9. So the registration will still start by 8. She has all the materials now. So she will be here to register you before 9. He will be here 9 on the dot to start. So thank you very much and goodbye.
Coordinator, thank you.
Hey!
It's just that you said you will not do it again.